order. Misty, would you call the roll, please?
Al Glanville.
Here.
J.R. Huddleston.
Here.
Deborah Johnston.
Here.
Bill Lukens.
Here.
Melissa Niles. Travis Orbach.
Here.
Larry Pratt. Linda Varvel.
Here.
Thank you.
It's time to pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, be mindful of conflict of interest. Need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to waive council pay.
Make a motion to waive council pay for this special meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Communications from the public. If there's anyone that would like to make a comment or whatever before we actually get into the department individual budget. All right. Little housekeeping before we get started. Melissa is on her way from Shattering. Probably be here maybe in a half hour. Larry is a little under the weather. Said he is feeling better, he'll join us. Wi-Fi, Zach with Black Hills Technology is trying to get that going for us. We'll go from there. Tonight is going to be interesting. We have more expenses than we have revenue. For council, just a reminder that we have to have a balanced budget, and there's two ways to do that. We can have a structurally balanced budget, which means our revenue meets our expenses, or we can take money out of savings or cash applied to balance the budget. It looks like we may have to take money out of cash applied to meet the budget requests from the different departments. As we look at the street department in particular, we know we have an old fleet as far as equipment is concerned. And for them to have the equipment they need to provide the services that we expect from them, we may need to ask you to take some money out of savings to make the budget. So just want to point out again, structurally balanced budget. The revenue that we're anticipating does not allow for that compared to the expenses. So if we're going to get to a balanced budget, either there's going to be some significant cuts to make that happen, or council will have to consider taking some money out of savings to make that happen. So, with that, I'd like to ask Misty to help us understand that process again and how that would work and how much money is available and where that would come from.
Thank you, Mayor. So Tuesday night we went through revenue. We changed, I think, just one. Our projected revenue is $3,619,951 in the general fund. And that's the fund we're gonna start with tonight. We're gonna let our guests speak when we get to that department, probably do that sooner rather than later. But the difference between our current projected expenses and our projected revenue, it shows us at a loss of $453,497. Well, that's a lot to have to try to cut. Mayor and I spent a little time together today talking through the different items that are larger and maybe one-time or unexpected that we identified in the requests from the different departments, and not things like building repairs and maintenance, because even though once I repair it, it might not be repaired again, I do need to keep my building up every year. So things like snow plows with accessories, which you approved Tuesday night, remember 115,000 in snow removal for a medium duty snowplow truck. So things like that is what we identified. And it gets us, when we add all those up, it'll be interesting to see how close Bill's list and my list are, but I'm somewhere around 331,000 of those kind of expenses that we don't have recurring every year. And yeah, we're always gonna have a piece of equipment that they wanna replace, but that gets us a little closer to the structurally balanced budget like the mayor was talking about. Tonight is when tough decisions have to get made. And we can talk in circles about what we'd like and how wouldn't it be nice, but eventually we're gonna have to make those kind of decisions on these items. And we determine our priorities when we determine the allocation of our limited resources. So it should be reflective of the priorities of our citizens and our entire community, and we should never lose sight of the responsibility we have to serve the needs of those citizens, all of them. So with that, we're gonna start the evening in the deficit, but by the end of the night, hopefully, we are gonna end around 9 o'clock. If we have to schedule another night, we do. But hopefully, we'll be a little closer to where we wanna be when we end that. And so if it's okay with you, Mayor, I'd like to invite the guests, and we'll start with the library fund and invite them if they have anything they wanna say before we get started with that department. And then if it's okay with all of you and the mayor, we'll start with the library so we don't have to stay through everything. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, so before we get started, is there anything you want to say, or are you just here to answer any questions, or?
We can answer questions, but I'd also like to remind you that we donated $30,000 back from our budget last year towards the roof. And I'm not sure what the deductible was on the roof, so I'm not sure if the entire $30,000 was made, but that was made in a good faith effort. So we approach you in a good faith effort this year we think our budget's pretty realistic. The only thing that I'm not sure of is that we probably need a new boiler. We're hoping it probably will be this year rather than next year, but Mary says the gentleman hasn't come down to look at it yet, so that's a potential liability that we really don't want to face, but we might be facing. And just the normal things, exterminators, window cleaning, things to keep the building up. We want to make the landscaping look so much better than it does now. The prior people that we had doing the landscaping basically killed everything, and the master gardeners had put in a lot of effort towards it, and it certainly was very frustrating. And the back needs to be shored up because the erosion is happening on the back hill, if you can see it.
Are we good?
Anybody have anything else?
You just have a key to the theater.
So we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. As a reminder, salaries and wages includes the 15% top of step increase for all employees that we proposed. The library has 4 full-time and 1 part-time, and 1 part-time custodian. So for a director, 3 full-time library clerks, a part-time library clerk, and a part-time custodian. Salaries and wages we're estimating at $160,000. Payroll taxes, $12,300. Retirement, $8,900. Workman's comp, $650. Our group insurance offerings, which includes our health and our dental benefits, and then our life insurance, $41,700. Unemployment, $700. The insurance, $13,420. That's our property casualty coverage. Services and fees, we have $17,000. That includes GNR Controls, which I think is the one that manages that boiler, HVAC, whatever you call that system there. That's services and contracts that we have with them equal $1,025. Carpet cleaning, they have done, is it twice a year, Mary, that you have your carpets cleaned, or just once?
Hasn't been done since I started.
Oh, we budget for it every year, though, in this services and fees, correct? It was in last year's budget, too, for $3,000.
I just spoke with Peggy about that not long ago, and she said it's such a good carpet that if it's maintained, like Carl does, that it maybe only has to be done every 3 to 4 years. So it has been several years since it's
Yeah, I think it has been built into every budget each year though. So we have 3,000, that 17,000 total includes carpet cleaning of 3,000, Black Hills Technology 6,500, night security 450, and then you'll see in the red, weed feed service 4,500. That's what Jane is talking about with requesting a new provider to do the upkeep of their grounds, even more so than True Green used to do.
You want to speak to that?
So if we could pause on that one just a little bit. I talked with Mary today, asked her to, send a little narrative of why they're asking to go with weed service. So I'll just read from Mary's email. True Green oversprayed and killed some of the master gardener's flowers. They also were not eliminating the weeds in the rock beds, nor were they doing much between the tree line on the west and the playground. Library board strongly against True Green. She's talked with different providers. Bill Martin is a local provider. Frequently checks in with Mary. Bill is applying fertilizer as well as spraying for weeds. Actually walks the grounds and sprays the weeds directly rather than blanketing the lawn unnecessarily, so there will not be any other spraying of the gardener's flowers. He'll be weeding the rock beds. This summer, next year, we'll be able to apply weed prevention to keep the rock beds and lawn looking much better. They recognize he is more expensive, but the library board feels he's the better option for the long-term care of the library grounds. Cost could lessen once the lawn is healthy and we switch to maintaining rather than fixing the neglected areas. Did I cover it, Mary?
Yes.
All right.
Will the master gardeners still be involved?
They still have their flower pots, but they only do the two, and Bill will take care of all the others.
And theirs will last longer if you don't spray them?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is Black Hills Technology? What's that? What do they do?
Those are IT folks.
Right. But is there like a,
You can go in, if you'd like to, go in depth of what the library's IT needs are, because they're significantly greater than any other facility.
We have multiple computers that the public has access to, so we have to keep them up and running all the time. They're always accessing the internet and their own things. It has to link to our printers so that they can do that. We have about 6 staff computers that we have to keep up and running. They do all of that.
They have to run special programs on the computers that the public accesses to ensure that, nothing's downloaded or, I'm not.
Security, so
Parent
the kids
control.
don't get into the wrong things.
Yeah.
And, yes.
how many devices are over there in the library, staff and public computers?
There's at least 21 computers altogether.
Great questions. I'm gonna keep going unless we have any other questions on the services and fees total.
Is the red marked 4,500?
Just because we need to talk about that, that's what the Bill Martin,
That's what
W.T.
he's
Martin.
asking for,
Mhm. It used to say True Green in there.
Right, and what was it before?
350 or 550 when it was True Green. I could pull up last year's if I had access.
Keep going.
Okay, we'll just keep going. Publishing, they publish their board minutes, sometimes some job openings, sometimes some seasonal events. We have 800 budgeted in there. Building repairs, 20,000. That's for some sheetrock repairs, and then there's some rotten logs, and they want to level the back patio. So we have 20,000 in building repairs.
We've been kicking that back patio leveling.
For the roof.
about 3 years now, haven't we?
Yeah, and the roof was our priority last year, and it's done. But you may have a little bit of new damage from our most recent hailstorm because it hailed on it as soon as it got done.
Now, on the repair of the rotten logs, the reason I'm asking about that, I got a call from a citizen that we have carpenter bee issues. Are we doing anything take care of our carpenter bee population?
Larry and Tracy have both been to the library and we have walked around. We've seen one bee out of the 5 times we've looked for bees. There are some holes in the rotten logs in the front that could have been created by the bees, but they're not infested right now. We saw one bee, and I've looked multiple different days, different temperatures. If we get the rotten logs cleaned up, we won't have any issue.
And cleaning up the rotten logs will expose any potential infestation.
Good to move on. Any other questions on the building repairs and maintenance? Equipment repairs, we have 4,000. I know it's called equipment repairs, but it's also maintenance, and that's where our copier maintenance agreement comes from. They are looking at replacing their main printer copier that has the vending unit. And then we did identify that the current provider does include toner. So we should see a savings in supplies with our current and our future copier maintenance agreement, including toner.
Who's the vendor on that?
Currently Marco Technologies. Street walk repairs, we have 2,000. Mayor, did you have some more information on the street lamp replacement that's listed on here?
I was able to talk with Mary today, understanding the last part of it, the city to give old lamps from downtown. I haven't been involved in any conversations, nor was I aware of any conversations that the city was going to give some of our street lamps to the library, so I had not a chance to talk with Mary. Mary said this is a holdover from when Peggy was the librarian, and it was Peggy's understanding that the city had committed to giving some of the old street lamps to the library. City and council, since I've been involved, has certainly committed to using the street lights to replace the bollard lights on the Freedom Trail, but I'm not aware there were any other commitments to using the lights anywhere throughout the city. We've talked about having those conversations. I took a look at the prints for the lighting. Looks like we're back online. There's about 109 existing street lights that will be coming down through the fall and the winter. Billy and the crew are going to be taking a look at those, try to refresh them. We also want to convert them to LED lights. So of the 109, there should be some left over. The Freedom Trail has about 70 bollard lights. But as far as lamps going up to the library, I'm not opposed to it. I just wanted to say that I was not aware that the library was told lamps would be going up there.
Given the deficit we're trying to close, this was the one library item. My question was, even if we can do this, can this be deferred to another year?
No lights?
The 2,000
The
in the
2,000.
street
Oh,
walk
2,000.
repairs, that's the area we're on.
Yeah, because those lights might not even be ready to get put up next year, so. Because Bill, like you said, Billy wants to refresh them, repaint them. A lot of main pieces, there's a lot of them that have a lot of refreshing to be done to them, so that's going to, again, take their time when they can get to it.
We wouldn't charge the library for the lights either,
Well,
would
no.
we? We wouldn't
I wouldn't
expect a
think so.
cost for those when we're ready and we refurbish them. Would we be billing the library for the cost of the ones that we would give them, or would we be doing that to all of them for reuse and then just repurpose them throughout town?
Yeah, I just, it's just, I don't see where that.
We talked about repurposing, but I do not recall anything of any lamps or lights going to the library. It's not out of the question by any means, but I don't remember that being brought up in any discussion.
It may not have been brought up to you folks, but it was brought up to us by the then city administrator. Thought it would be a great idea.
Was that Jeff? I thought Jeff was the one who might have been involved in that
Jeff was the
conversation.
one that
We're trying
brought it
to-
up.
We
Okay.
were also talking about putting them throughout Butler Park too, to light the interior. Yeah, you know, that was another idea floated.
There have been other areas talked about, as I said, Butler Park, plus possibly putting them on the Freedom Trail at Chautauqua. So there's been a lot of suggestions about where they might go if there's any excess. But again, since I've been on council, it's always been agreed through Public Works or whatever that the little short baller lights on the Freedom Trail would be replaced with these big lights. So that's the first priority. Again, there's 109 of them coming down, and maybe 70 on the Freedom Trail. So there will be excess lights. Just won't know for sure until they get to refurbishing them and seeing how many are reusable.
Just put us on the list then. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I think the comment when Jeff was attending our meetings and told us that we could probably get some of those is because I think the present ones that we have up there now don't have the capability of plugging in, decorations and stuff, and whereas the ones that they were taking downtown have the ability to have electric plugged in, so you can plug in your decorations and stuff. So that was the main reason that discussion, or Jeff brought it up at the, one of our meetings.
So as far as the lights themselves, the globes and that kind of thing, are they okay? Are they
Yeah.
providing light? You just don't have a way of putting them.
Light, they have quite a few holes in them. The covers of them have holes in them.
Okay.
So they need the covers and they need repainted.
Would you need to repaint them by next year, or because I think the consensus I hear is this is one thing that maybe we can take off of this year's and get us close where we need to be, but then when ours are ready, will yours, which hopefully the lighting will get done in 2024, but then the time it'll take them to refurbish them might be 2025, so you wouldn't need to repaint yours in between now and 2025, would you? Because we'd hate to put money into lights we plan on taking down.
They'll last. They work.
Okay.
They're just not as pretty.
Okay.
But it's cosmetic.
This last 5 minutes, we've been talking about just the $2,000.
Yep, that was the recommendation we had, and that's the conversation, you're right. So if anybody objects to removing the 2,000 from there, we can move on.
I've already done it.
All right. Okay, our next one is supplies. It is lower. Office supplies, subscriptions, crafting supplies for programs, flags, book covers, barcode labels. Supplies are historically supplemented annually with grant dollars and donations. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we were purchasing printer ink out of supplies. So $4,000 is the amount we have listed for supplies for 2024. Janitorial supplies, we have $2,000. Any questions or comments on history, year-to-date balance, or request on that one? Travel and conference, we have $3,500. Library certification for 2 staff members is needed, and then miscellaneous training in the library into the 2024 ALA is what we have listed in notes for that. Telephone, $3,500. I think I talk about this every year, but to remind you, the variability in those charges has to do with the E-rate service that we apply for, and almost every time we've gotten awarded annually, the amounts vary. When we get the acceptance and the credits vary based on usage, so that's, the notes say E-rate variable, and that's something that Mary works on every year to make sure that we continue to stay active and part of that program and get the benefits that we can through the phone company for being a library. Electricity, we have $9,000. Propane, we have $5,000 with the assurance, just like we gave you last year, if it's a cold winter and you need propane, you don't have to go cold. We'll appropriate if we need to. It varies based on weather and price, so we're just guessing. Machinery and equipment, we have $8,350. The IT folks have shared that we need to upgrade staff computers. They priced 6 out at $850 each for $5,100. And then an upgrade to the security system by adding 3 cameras is needed $2,250 we have estimated for that, and then they need a new server battery backup for about $1,000. These are estimates, of course, when we purchase them, the prices might be a little different, but we have $8,350 machinery and equipment for those items.
Where are you folks looking to add the 3 cameras?
In the DVD area, because we've had DVDs go missing. And even with increased staff out there, we're just worried that we're missing people when they're messing with the DVDs. And because we shifted the current cameras, we have no view of the Y area, so we have blank spots right there.
You only don't.
We will help cover it.
Who's the
Yeah,
vendor?
no.
Who's the vendor?
Black Hills Technology.
Oh, so BHT's, okay, so they're the one, so what computer do you guys have? What model, you know? Like, how old are they?
Staff computers are at least 5 years old, I think they said. But
So Black Hills is doing the cameras and the computers, and are they getting they're doing the battery backup too?
Get it? And their service contract.
So that 6,500 when we go back, is that sort of like a maintenance contract?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
The rest of the city,
So it's about,
Well, we share
or
it,
everything.
but
oh, so that's all over, that's not just the library?
that is for the libraries.
Okay, so it's about $309 to maintain a computer yearly by BHT.
They do other things too that might be billed. If you wanted to review their bills, we certainly could review them with
I'm
you.
just getting a picture of it.
Yep.
Isn't Marco, can Marco do anything else there?
Marco is just the printer
They really do a few
and
things.
providing the toner for the printers.
All right, any other questions on the machinery and equipment? Computer software, we have 4,000. They run Overdrive, that's kind of like their point of sale for checking out books and tracking books. They have, or no, Overdrive is Bullet is your, kind of like your point of sale. Overdrive is,
Is that the
The
ebook?
ebooks.
E-books.
It's actually Libby now, isn't it?
Libby, yes.
it is called Libby now?
Yeah.
Did the price change?
No, they just switched their name.
Is that LIBBY?
Why?
Why? I'll update these notes. On the Bullet software, Cybrarian, which is that the locking
That's
thing?
the protection.
Start Logic, which is the startup thing, that's every 3 years. We paid that last in 2022, so we left it in here, but we're not budgeting for that this year. Sonic Wall, Child Protection Encryption, and the Pharonics is included in the Black Hills Technology billing. So that's one of those things that goes into the total that you saw in the professional services and fees.
The 6,500?
Yes. So for the computer software, we have 4,000. For books, we have 15,000. And again, like supplies, books are historically supplemented annually with grant money and donation money. And that covers all books, DVDs, audiobooks, nonfiction, large print, and books for all age groups.
Are you guys still focused on like physical books, or is there a move towards the electronic side, or is it, what's the ratio on that?
We try to keep bringing in the books because we have a lot of people that want physical books. E-books they can do for free on Libby. I do need to do a little more work on that end of it to figure out how we add books to that because my staff has not been trained with that formula.
I was gonna say, at the school district, we have Sora, and we, 3 checkouts for each student, staff member. You check out one, and just think it'd be less trouble having to do all the physical books.
There's a lot of people that don't want to go any electronics that come to our library. They like their physical books.
Is it a possibility we could drop that to 10? Gotta start somewhere.
10 is what we had approved for this year. And I would say most of the smaller grants that you get, that you apply for each year, like this Stephanie Miller Davis, those typically go to books, right?
Are any of those repairs covered by insurance, or is that just wear and tear?
On books?
No, sorry,
It's back
I was going back, sorry, that's all. I was just looking through where we were cutting stuff.
can we, if you don't mind, if we can address what Deborah asked first, and then I can talk a little bit about insurance. Anyone else? 10,000 for books?
I was just looking what we've spent year to date.
We have a large book order just about ready to go in. so-
And they're pretty constant, right? I mean, you have.
Try to spread it throughout the year.
You're about 35% of your $10,000 budget year to date, so they have some funds still to purchase books for this year.
They do a lot of their ordering towards the end of the year, or?
No, throughout, based on requests.
I was gonna say, that's the whole core focus of the library, right, the books. And we're thinking about cutting that?
Well, it's an increase from last year, so it wouldn't be a cut, it would be keeping it the same.
Oh, I see.
And it's not really the whole core, because we have, and the ebooks are a huge thing. The Libby is huge. And the internet use, the computer use, and, so, yeah, it's not just books that people come there for.
Now that you mentioned, Misty, that the grants and things will make up the majority.
They have to apply for and receive those, though. So what we're talking about is what's in our control. I just mentioned that because if you look at previous year's history, those dollars have been supplemented.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yep, that's right.
I'd rather give them their repairs than $5,000 extra dollars. Books.
And that, so is there anyone against making that change?
Well, looking back at 2021, they were at 25,000.
That was supplementally appropriated, wasn't the budgeted amount.
And then 2022 was 11,600, then budgeted for 10 this year. I'm with Deborah that, starting to cut, but could we cut 2,500 from that and put them at 1,250?
One thing to consider is that books are getting much more expensive. I just ordered a fiction book for myself and it's close to $32, whereas 3 years ago it was probably going to be 25.
Library down.
So I have 10,000 and I have 12,500. And you guys get to tell me what number I'm plugging in there, or I have 15. We're on the library when you get in. I got 10,000, I got 12,500. I should take some auctioneering classes.
12,500.
15,000.
12,500 now?
12,500, 12,500.
12,500.
12,500 is going in, and that leads us to subscriptions. That's new in 2023. After assisting Mary with the library annual report, it will be a lot more helpful for her to see subscriptions broken out. So this previously was budgeted in supplies, which you saw went down. Well, it did go up. Well, we moved that down because for tracking for her at the end of the year, if we have just one expense code, she can pick that number and plug it into a report. It's a lot easier than going through all the history. So it's new, but it's not new money. We just moved it around, and I think it increased 1,000 over last year's if we added the two together.
Where are subscriptions?
What do you mean? Where?
I mean, explain what's a subscription.
Magazines.
That's all of our magazines.
Oh,
Newspapers.
So that would be similar to buying books.
And it used to go into supplies. That's where she coded it because it's not coded into books, and that's part of your reporting for your annual report.
We actually went down 1,000.
Down,
So
not
we
up.
had 10.
Okay.
And
Thank
now
you.
it's 9.
Thank you for pointing that out.
And they've canceled some of the newspapers and magazines that really aren't.
Getting read.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so with our two changes, our library budget sits at $336,320. And we heard the library made me boiler. All right, are we ready to move on?
So as we look at all these budgets, Misty.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to talk about insurance too.
No, I was just gonna
We-
say, is there any of that covered by,
Usually wear and tear
that's
is
what
not
it's,
covered.
sheetrock's just wear and tear?
Mhm. That's things that need replaced after time.
How old is that?
2005 it was built?
2005.
It had some leakage problems and stuff that were recently repaired.
Okay, sorry, Mayor.
No, that's fine. As we talk about these budgets, obviously they've gone up. But how much of it is because of the salary, the 15% increase that's, we're proposed to throw employees? So looking at, this budget going from 301 to 336, is 10 of that?
$20,375 is the total for salaries and wages, payroll taxes, and retirement as an estimate for the increase, so 20,000.
I just think that's,
Significant.
keep that as part of the discussion as you're looking at, these budgets going up, that a lot of it's driven by the fact that the folks are going to be getting varied.
Thank you for that. It's been very hard to hire qualified people when they can earn more at Dairy Queen. Nothing against Dairy Queen, but it's a different type of skill set.
One of your positions is exactly the reason, is kind of the poster child for why we have to do it, because as minimum wage in the state of South Dakota increases, if we're not increasing our top of steps, within 1 year, if they give 85 cents again, our 80% for the top of step for a starting library clerk is gonna be under the minimum wage amount. So,
Already is.
wait, is that the one that already
It
is?
is already, you cannot start your librarians
At your regular 80%.
Which is why we're running on 2 people basically, and it's been very difficult.
So thank you for thanking us, and it's a good reason why we're doing it. All right, we ready to move on from library?
Yes.
Great. Where do we want to go next? Now, they're the only guests here, so, I'll mention street cleaning. We had talked about that Tuesday night. I said that I would ask, thank you for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Good luck.
Appreciate all you'll do.
Bring back about 4 dozen tacos.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Yeah.
We talked about the supplies and materials at 2,000, and I said I would ask him, and when I talked to Billy about it, he said he's not really sure where that number came from. With the 3,000 for the brooms and stuff up above, and repairs and maintenance, he was comfortable cutting that to 200. So I did cut that from 2,000 to
Where are we
200.
at on this?
That's street cleaning, and it was one we did already, but I
Oh,
changed
and
it.
it was 3,000, but now it's.
No, the one under it, the $2,000 one,
Oh, okay.
You changed that to what?
200.
Oh, okay.
That totals 17,475, right?
The
Yeah.
streets?
Street cleaning?
Street cleaning comes to 14,675 after that change.
Such a small amount.
14,675. It's small because we bought out our street super last year. That's why it's important to know the story with the numbers, because they're gonna vary so much.
Right, but I'm just thinking in general, looking to cut from this, I mean, it's such a small.
No, we can't cut from that. We took 1,800, and so,
Oh, can you go over the numbers again?
Yeah.
My number doesn't
in
match.
street cleaning,
Yeah.
we have 7,000,
Okay.
550, 425, 3,000, 200, and then 3,500.
3,500. That's where I'm off. Thank you.
Yep.
In wastewater, I found a grant yesterday when we were at that meeting, and for anything dealing with confined space, they can refund $2,000
Huh?
to match up through. I printed it out.
You were talking about that mask?
Yep,
Mhm.
Okay.
yep, I printed it off, it's through, but this is last year's copy of it, but they said it's competitive, so you want to, but he said since you have nothing, you probably would start.
Okay.
The first couple of months is when you want to apply, because it runs out, it's first come, first served.
And it's open right now.
No, it opens July 1st, not July, January 1st.
January 1st.
Oh, okay. Great, we'll try to apply for it. We've got a budget in, but thanks. Do you want to share that with us so we can make sure
Yeah,
we don't miss it?
I made this
Okay.
copy for you.
Excellent, thank you.
I-4.
Melissa. High
Don't
four.
comment about the tops. Did you see
Budget cuts.
that?
All right, so
You have to match it, I think.
Well, we just,
Okay.
okay.
it's reimbursement, it sound like?
Right.
I heard.
So I think I'll just go from the general fund over then. from the tab that is the total for the general fund. We talked about transfers out. We talked about economic development. How about next we hit the, oh, sorry, I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forwards. We talked about mayor, we talked about contingency, we talked about legal, and that brings us to finance, which is on page 4 if you're following along here, and it's on the 4th tab in from the right on the spreadsheet. Let me know when you're ready.
We're on, okay.
Finance.
I had to go back to the far end again.
Yep.
So where are we at? Where are we going?
Finance.
It's the 4th one over. So we talked about mayor and council, we talked about contingency, we talked about legal.
What page on our?
It is on page 4 on your budget expenditure worksheets. Everybody ready? All right. Finance includes the city administrator, the finance officer, the assistant finance officer, 1 full-time front desk admin, and 1/4 of the shared admin. You remember when we talked about development coordinator Tuesday night, we talked about that new split for that. We have $240,000 for salaries and wages, $18,500 for payroll taxes, $14,500 for retirement, $750 for workman's comp, $44,500 for group insurance, $625 for unemployment, $1,760 for insurance, $8,000 for services and fees. We're estimating $3,000 for election expenses. Every other year, we share with the county and they just bill us. And then on the other years, we run it ourselves. American Legal Supplements, that's our online ordinances. Well, that can vary based on the changes we make and how significant they are, that the impact is on the publication of our ordinance books. And then we have an estimate for shredding services. So that is our total of $8,000. Publishing, we have $150. It's minimal. We could drop it if you wanted because most publishing is paid from general government. But if we advertise for city administrator position, then we typically pay for that for there. We don't have anything in vehicle repairs because we don't have a vehicle. Many supplies are paid from general government, but finance has $2,000 budgeted for supplies. We have $4,500, which you could shave $1,000 off if you wanted, for travel and conference, but we will have a new city administrator, we have a new assistant finance officer, we have a new admin. So those are all new positions. We also pay our SDML membership dues for the city administrator, HR, and finance officer associations out of that. So there is somewhere that I have highlighted because I believe you could drop it back down to $3,500 if you want. And just concerned that in 2024, if we're lucky enough to have those positions filled, we're going to be using some of that training. So, thoughts? We're cutting. I don't mind if we cut from this, but we may end up having to put some more in there.
I think let's put it on hold and look at it as if needed a later necessity.
It's just $1,000.
Yeah, I would.
We need
I-
big chunks, but.
You know, if we get a city administrator, we need to train that person.
Absolutely.
They need to understand municipal government.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it for now. Just thought I'd mention it. We did budget for a city administrator phone. They can either use the city line or be reimbursed. The last one liked to be reimbursed, but the amount we put in there for the budget is what it would be if the city issued a phone. And then computer software, we pay 1/3 of the point of sale through Banyan, and American Legal Internet renewal for 1 year, and we have $700 there. So $336,525 in finance.
Where's the Kettle Thorpe? I can't say.
General government.
Okay.
That's a big one. You'll see it soon.
As good as finance has been behaving, I would say let's cut that beyond
Yeah.
that.
But then you're gonna end up having to pay more in the end if we skip those.
I know, that was
I joke.
budgeting humor.
Uh-huh. It landed just like you think
Yeah,
budgeting
it
humor
did.
should land.
Went over like a rat sandwich.
All right, so any changes or conversations on the finance tab? We're gonna move to general government / buildings. We don't have any payroll. We used to have a city hall cleaner that was paid, 35 or 38 years, a city hall cleaner that was paid out of that salaries and wages. That's why it's in there, but now we have a contracted cleaner. So we have insurance on the various buildings covered under this, $8,030. Our services and fees is where you're gonna see those audit expenses. We have $56,850 in our projected budget. We have $38,000 projected for our 2024 audit. We did agree to a 3-year agreement, so that's a pretty close number, and then estimating that we'll have one federal award that has a single audit. We don't know. Depends on if anybody wants to give us a bunch of money. Black Hills Technologies, $6,000. Bank charges, which I don't have anything in there for right now because the way the rates are at, when we got to the revenue for interest earned, you saw where there's significantly more interest because rates gone up, and our fees are offset by an earnings credit. So the position we're in right now, we're not paying bank charges because our earnings credit are offsetting those fees and giving us some interest. So I don't have anything in there. Ecolab, they do the spraying for the creepy crawlies. We have $450. City website, we have $6,000. We found out this year our current website agreement for hosting the city website ends in February of 2024. And in the process of trying to get estimates for what the new one might be, we found out that GovOffice switched to Catalyst, which is a Canadian company, and they significantly increased their rates. And this was, GovOffice was the one that was promoted by the Municipal League, so many communities are in the same spot we're in now, and we've looked at, Ariel has attended a couple calls where we've looked at other sites, hosting sites, what they can offer and what they cost, and $6,000 will get us through next year if we stay with Catalyst. So that's what we have in our budget, but we will be continuing down that road of if it's the right one for us, if we want to stay there or if we want to switch going into 2024. Our City Hall cleaner requested an increase to $6,350. And then any electricians, plumbers, or heating issues we have also come out of the services and fees budget. Publishing, we have $10,000, that's for all the publishing. And I meant to show you how much we had to pay for that resolution with those pictures in it. It was $463 for that meeting's, was it $463 or $436 for that meeting's minutes? So we'll have to remember that.
Don't do that again.
Yeah, maybe we could describe it in words instead of pictures. But $10,000 for publishing. Building repairs and maintenance, I have highlighted. I asked Historic Preservation President Steve Linya to help us at City Hall figure out what we need to do to preserve our building, not just, you know, pretty stuff, but what we have to do to preserve it. And he mentioned a couple of things. He mentioned tuck pointing, especially behind the building, and then the sloughed earth needs to be moved away from the rear of the building because the outside stone was not meant to hold that, and over time it has come down. And so those are the two things he said should be the first priority. And these are total estimates here for what we could get done with this, but we know next year is going to be a tough year, and if we have to put it off, it's lasted over 100 years already. But that hill behind sliding down and leaning against the building, and then the tuck pointing were two priorities mentioned for City Hall. Do you have any comments? Anybody want to raise or lower, or?
It's a principal issue and almost an integrity issue. Is how do we expect people to follow our ordinance if we don't? So I don't like spending an additional $12,000 or whatever the math is, but I think we need to leave it in there.
Anybody else have any other? Okay, I'm gonna leave that in there. We have our equipment repairs and maintenance. We have $6,000 for our copier maintenance contract, $5,000 for the copier maintenance contract, and $1,000 for any other equipment repairs and maintenance we might need.
That's the same Marco?
Nope, we use Century Business Products. We looked at Marco this year. We were told by the salesperson that if we combined all three, because Marco's at the police department and at the library, that we could save a bunch of money. But it turns out when we got the actual quotes for both of them, we were better off staying with Century Business Products. Not that Marco's not good, they're great too, but we did not combine. We're keeping ours where we're at, and we're letting the library and the police department manage their copier needs separately, because it did not save us a significant amount of money to combine. Supplies, we have 7,000. This is where the majority of the supplies for the city, we let every department come and take paper or get pencils, or they do order their own, but we supply all the postage, paper, envelopes, office supplies. Janitorial supplies, 2,000. Travel and conference, 5,300, even though this doesn't send anybody anywhere. This is our SDML annual membership and our Black Hills Council of Local Governments membership payments. Telephone, 3,800. We added the engineer line to general government buildings because it was part of our trunk hunting anyway. So half of his calls weren't for him. So we moved that, that's why it's up a little bit. Electricity, 4,800. Propane, 4,500, same thing with the library, we're just guessing. Other current expense is highlighted because the request came from the 2 city employees who managed the fireworks display to increase it from 5,000 to 9,000. We talked about that a little bit Tuesday night when we talked about bid matching 5,000. I thought so. Okay, so I have on the floor a proposal to lower that to 5. Which is what we've done before. It's matched, so it's actually $10,000 in fireworks. You all okay with that?
And just for the new folks, if things remain the same, if we purchase in January, they up our product by
25%?
some, at least, I was remembering 10, but
I think it's, if we do it early,
I'm
it's
an old
25,
guy,
and
so-
then it goes down after that.
It was an awesome display, so
It's good enough at 5.
I agree.
All right.
Cutting 4 out of there.
Yep, changing that one to 5. Computer software, we have 5,000. That includes our fund accounting, payroll, and vault backup with Banyan at 1,900. Our time card module at 625. And IT says we need to upgrade our Sonic Wall security packages on the firewall, 9 at $275 each for a total of $2,475. That one's just highlighted because of that. IT says we should upgrade, but if they say we need to upgrade and it has to do with security, I would think that'd be important. So I have a total in general government buildings of $143,280 with our change.
On that IT stuff, who's vetting that? They say that we need something and we just say, okay.
They've been our IT folks since before I started, and they've always done good work for the city as far as I'm concerned.
except her email last.
Yeah,
That was,
for a while. It's fixed though, right? I mean, things happen.
Well, the school district has about 800 computers, and we pay like $2,500 a year for maintenance.
Who do you pay?
RTI out of Sioux Falls. So I just, my personal experience where my talents are, I'm gonna kind of dig into that a little bit.
That'd be great.
With your permission, to see what these guys are charging and why.
Misty, did you say 143,280?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready to move on?
yeah.
We did engineer already, because we said that was an easy one. Takes us to the police department.
Do we want to go elsewhere for a while? And come back to them?
We can move
Yeah.
around. Do you want to start on the salaries and wages notes?
Yeah, that's fine. Police department?
Okay.
Oh, anything else?
Pass around.
Yeah. I do want to. So there's been a lot of discussion around the salary for the police department. Christy and I have talked about it, and we're on different sides of the conversation. If you remember last year, we agreed to raise the wages for all of the officers. The patrol officers got an 18% raise, the captain got a 19% raise. and the chief got a 20% raise last year, and none of the other departments got one. But if you remember, the reason behind that was we were recognizing that it was difficult to get officers, and to get officers to apply that we would want to hire. So with the chief's help, I just put together a list of some bullet points and things that have been accomplished since essentially we have a new department. And I'm confident that the reason we're where we're at right now is because of our captain and our chief, taking responsibility, chief mostly, for the department. So if council agreed to give them a pay raise, a 10% pay raise, they then would get a 20, 29, and 30% pay raise in the same time that everybody else is getting a 15% pay raise. In my mind, the pay raise that we gave them last year demonstrated that it was necessary to get into that kind of salary range to get the quality of people that we have right now. So what we would be talking about as far as giving them another pay raise is to be able to retain the officers that we have. Other departments around the hills have given pay raises. The 10% would not get our officers to what they could make going elsewhere, but it would put us in a better position to retain the officers that we have. We had 8 certified officers for the first time that I've been on council. And we lost one due to health. The chief was able to hire another one, and he was scheduled for school in November. So at the end of that, we'll be back up to 8 certified officers. That's the reason I asked council to consider giving them another pay raise. It's for retention.
So the last page of the documents that were provided to each of you is the proposal recommendation from admin finance, which is the 15%, and that would include the police department admin assistant, who wasn't included in any of the raises before. That's all built into the budget already. What is not is what the mayor's talking, but at the end of that, I have a estimate for the increases if it, for the additional 10%, which wouldn't be 28, 29, and 30, because when you add a percent to a percentage, it's greater than the 2 percentages combined. But if that was approved, it'd add additional $51,900 to the budget that you're already looking at. So the $528,000 figure for salaries and wages, 1 full-time chief, 1 full-time captain, 6 full-time officers, which includes an SRO, and that's important to note because he spends most of his time at the school during the school year, and 1 full-time admin assistant. We also project a 5% increase over the projected amount budgeted for overtime, holiday pay, night shift differential, and 5% this year is not even come close to what we're still paying fully staffed for overtime for the department. So if we were to increase salaries and wages to add an additional 10% increase to the top of steps for all of the previously increased police department positions, we'd be adding $44,900 to that $528,000 figure.
When Misty and I talked with the chief about his budget, he originally had a new police vehicle in there, 2024 Interceptor. And that figure was at $80,000. And in talking with him, he recognized that a pay raise for the officers is more important than the vehicle. The original request was to go ahead and go with the pay raise. And then the balance of the, we'll round it off to, Misty, what did you say it was? Looking at your number here, it's 52,000?
Sure.
So take the remaining 20 to 28,000 from the 80 and put that into a future fund to replace the vehicle next year. I think the vehicle future fund needs to go also and go with the pay raise for the officers.
concern with the future fund, or the capital outlays, it would be called, is that we don't have an excess. We have a deficit. You're working on a deficit. If you want to take cash balance and buy a police car today, you can do that. But you can't allocate a deficit for a future payment. And you can't guarantee that a cash balance available today is going to be available in 2024 when you want to spend it, unless you take some kind of action to set aside those dollars, but you don't have them in your 2024 budget.
And talking with Misty today, that's the reason I suggested just give the pay raise. They will have to wait. We've got a fleet that we're gonna have to address.
Yeah, 2 years ago, they told us that we would need to replace one car every year essentially to keep it updated.
We've also been talking for years about how all the positions needed an increase. And so the 15% that we're proposing, given to everybody who didn't get one, brings us closer as an employee base to all coming to the same. If we add again, because their position deserves it, it should be considered for all the positions because we're all in the same environment.
These positions are not the same. Police officers do not have the same job as everybody else. They are not faced with the same level of risk as every other position. If you look at our personnel policy, every other position, we forbid them to carry a firearm. This position is required to carry a firearm because of the risk that they're up against. When you look at what's going on in our city, our county, and our nation, we are fortunate to have people that are willing to be police officers. In Fargo, North Dakota, whether it was last week or a week and a half ago, one officer was murdered and 2 officers were critically injured. And the reason is because an individual decided to kill him. There was a traffic stop. This individual, at the suspected urgings of an outside influence, took the opportunity to open fire on these officers. That could happen here. So if you look at the statistics of what our officers are doing, the number of calls are somewhat down. The level of risk, the number of calls that we consider high risk is up. The complexity of calls is up. The level of investigation is up. So I'm sorry, there is a difference between a street worker, a finance worker, a sewer worker, and a police officer. It is different. We do not require everybody else to wear body armor.
It's factored into the pay scale studies that we did when we set rates, the difference in the positions. So.
And anybody in the city, if they want to earn what a police officer is earning, they can apply for the open positions we have in the police department, but so far, none of them have. So it is a different job, and they deserve what we are proposing, what I'm supporting that we pay them.
So you're also supporting the additional 10% increase to
Yes.
add to the
Yes, I am.
expenses?
My biggest concern, and I fought hard to get our police pay up to a standard to where we could at least get bad officers to apply. Before, we couldn't even get bad officers to apply. So I worked hard to try to convince people that we need to pay them the salary that needs to be paid, that they could make, if they decided to go somewhere else, Rapid City, Sturgis, Custer, wherever, our salary would be high enough that they would have to take into consideration I gotta move, I gotta get a home, I gotta get all of this going up. If they didn't wanna travel from Hot Springs by vehicle to their new job. So I worked hard at that. What I'm afraid of is if we do not stay with a good pay increase every year, we're gonna be right back to where we were. We're not gonna get officers to apply because they're gonna go somewhere else because they can get paid more to go somewhere else and for the same position.
Well, I'd like to retain the ones we've got, we've put a lot into them, and
I'm a super advocate of giving them a 10% increase.
I would like to be clear that every employee of the city gets 2 raises every year. If you approve the 85-cent COLA, that includes every position in the city, and they all are eligible for step increases or longevity increases on their anniversary date. This increase that we're talking about doesn't give somebody who makes $25 an hour a 10% or 15% increase. It is to the top of step set for the position,
Right.
and then whatever part of the step they're on, they'll get then a 3rd increase this year
Right.
in 2024.
And to JR's point, as far as keeping the officers' wage competitive, I asked the chief director, I said, you know, if I advocate for this, are you then going to want another 10% increase next year, or do you fall in line with the other percent of increases that city employees will be getting? His answer to me was that he feels this one would get them where they need to be, and then be in line with standard raises next year. He's concerned that if we don't get it up to compete with the other agencies around the hills, that we're going to be at risk of losing what council has put in place over the last year.
And I don't think we can afford to lose officers and go back to the way we were before. That was, man, it just hurts the heart knowing these guys put themselves at risk with no staff to support them. They didn't have staff, they didn't have officers till we raised that.
they were putting in 100 hours,
Still are.
period.
So you're saying the more money they make, their level of for risk tolerance is comes down or goes up?
No,
I mean, so the more money they make, then their tolerance for risk goes up. They can accept more risk.
I'm not saying that.
No, but we have enough people to where,
We don't have to
What I'm
work.
saying is, where's the loyalty? I mean, everybody wants money, right? You get to make
no,
sure
but
that
what was
these guys are loyal
happening
to-
is we had about 3 officers working where we should have 8. So we were working people 100+ hours in a 2-week period. We nearly worked some people to death.
You
Yeah.
still have officers
I
working
remember.
over 100 hours every period.
Fully
Multiple-
staffed.
Multiple officers working over 100 hours.
Because they set their
Is there
schedule.
that much crime? What's going on?
There wasn't coverage for the shifts.
No, this is fully staffed.
Yeah.
We still have
We
it
have 8
now.
officers
So
now.
why
Yeah.
do we have that much overtime?
Yeah, what are these guys
Well,
doing?
they were covering for the one officer being ill or having an injury.
We had one officer that was on light duty, that one is since moved on. The chief has some significant overtime, and he was filling in for officers that were off on training that he had talked about.
Yes, because we just got 2 back from training recently.
Right.
And then
So
uncertified
that's-
officers
That's
do
3
not work
officers that
alone.
had to be covered for.
At the combative training that all of them attended, except the chief. He filled in for them while they were off getting training.
And there is stuff going on here.
Well, I remember, it wasn't that long ago, when we were lucky to have 3 of them.
Yep.
And I remember officers coming on call, and they were wore out, just wore out. And what we've done so far is just magnificent. We gotta do whatever we can to keep them and keep the quality of officers.
And I think with that, we'll gain loyalty. It's worth a lot.
I just don't want to fall back to where we were before, with nobody wanting to apply or take the position. And we're back to stage 1 and have to fight to get this going. We need to keep it going so that we can retain what we have, and they won't leave us, we'll keep our full 8 staff instead of down to 3 or 4. 3 mostly is what we were.
Am I adding to this budget? Am I adding 51,900 in salaries and wages, payroll taxes, and retirement to this budget?
So we have 4 that are in favor. 5.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay. So your first number is gonna change to $572,900. Second number is gonna change to 43,900. And retirement will change to
Would you give me that second number, please?
43,900.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And retirement will change to 46,100. Not adjusting workers' comp, I imagine it'll be minimal. I have 13,000, which is over what was spent previously, so I think that'll still cover it. Group insurance, $72,600.
I'm sorry, what was the
Third number,
third number? Was
46,100.
46,1?
Yep. And then workers' comp stays the same at 13. Insurance, group insurance stays the same at 72,600. Unemployment, 1,750. Insurance, 15,200. Services and fees, 6,690. That includes their cleaning contract. They have the same cleaning provider as City Hall, and she has a small increase requested for the year, 4,275. They have Markbo copier contract, $840. They have Serval rugs at $550. Patches, uniforms, alterations at $300. Drug testing at $400. Fire extinguisher testing at $200, and shredding services at $125, making up that total. They have vehicle repairs at $10,000. They have 3 vehicles in warranty and 5 out. Any comments on that number?
I'd like to see that go down to 7,500.
Knowing that if there was something significant, like an accident, insurance would supplement that budget. I'm comfortable with that if everyone else is.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
You
we're gonna,
can't predict.
we're gonna fix it. I think they work pretty close with, they've been working real close with Adam, so.
Just making my other changes. So 7,500 vehicle repairs, knowing that if there's something that comes up, it has to get fixed. Equipment repairs, 750. I'm sorry, that was building repairs. Equipment repairs and maintenance, 1,100. Calibration of radars, PBT, is that blood alcohol? PBT testing. It was reduced 1,500 because they're no longer buying taser cartridges as we get to the bottom and we add that new debt to this department that you did approve this year. Those tasers, the cartridges are now covered under that lease that you have. Supplies, they have 8,500. That's 2,500 for office supplies, 2,500 for citation warnings, and 3,500 for ammo. Clothing, they'd like to increase their clothing from $600 per officer to $800 per officer. That would include clothing, boots, and duty gear, which previously would have come out of supplies. So 8 officers at $800 is $6,400, and then $500 total for reserves, and then $2,200 for 4 vests. And they, as on that sheet of paper that Bob handed out, they have identified a grant that reimburses 50% of new vest purchases. So $9,100 for clothing if you're all amenable to those increases.
And when I talk about the best grants, if you remember, the chief talked with you about the ones that he got this year and the ones that he's going to be applying for next year.
All right, move on.
I'm concerned about the clothing allowance. I'm sorry, I don't want
That's okay.
to get off this before we go on, but I'm concerned that we increase clothing allowance here. We're not looking at anybody else either in the city that.
The others weren't at that amount anyway, and one of the things that Ross wanted to, and the reason he's requesting that increase, because he wanted to include all duty gear and clothing. So if I want, I'm not gonna say a pair of sunglasses, because I don't think that's.
No, we know that.
But if I
No.
want a case to hold my handcuffs or my flashlight, that they would start including that in the $800 clothing allowance, where before it would have come out of supplies.
And if, when I read the, I'm assuming draft
Draft, methods for pass.
policy, all of this, all of that stays with the city, and 800 was the proposed amount for,
I don't think we put amounts in that draft policy, but you're right. Anything that's purchased with taxpayer dollars then is going to be, is supposed to be logged, documented, and then returned to the
maybe I
city.
just have a really good imagination. Yeah, I thought it said 800 for PD. The amounts I've seen in our proposed expense budget here is what I remember reading
Oh.
in that draft
I
policy.
think we put dollar amounts in there because we want flexibility for budgeting purposes, so.
Yeah, because,
if it
so
is,
a
we
lot of
should
this
do it.
came out of supply, or moved from supplies to clothing because it's head to toe inclusive.
Okay, all right, you convinced me
Good
of that too.
question, Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
Janitorial supplies, 800. Gas, oil, and diesel, 20,000, kind of like propane. We are talking about potentially changing where the police department fuels up, which may have a small change to the costs that they pay, but we don't know what gas prices are gonna be in 2024. So we're sticking with 20,000, even if we make the change. We have to give them more. We're not gonna tell them they can't drive around, so.
Yeah, stay here to the afternoon.
Travel and conference is another area where we have an increase, 12,400. That close quarters combat, I'm not sure what the B stood for, class that they all went to was very beneficial. He'd like to continue to utilize that training opportunity. That's 5,200 for all 8 officers. Active shooter training at 4,000, and then 3,200 for other trainings available to the 8 officers.
The B stands for battle, according to me.
Battle, okay, close
Close
quarter
quarter
battle.
battle.
So 12,400 was the request for travel and conference.
And while we're talking about that, acknowledging that there was additional overtime, we talked about the fact that the chief, Orco, going to this particular training.
Telephone, 3,000, unless there are any other, were you
Okay.
about to say something?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I go backwards just a little bit?
Yes,
To the fuel,
okay.
what do they have that runs on diesel?
Oh, that's just the title that DLA gives that object code. They don't have anything that runs on diesel, it's all gas. That's just the title of the object code.
Are these trainings, are those required, or are those just nice to haves, or what? How do they decide on what they're gonna get trained on?
It's really a risk-based training program. The risks that they're gonna come up against, that's what they're starting to train for.
And they decide.
And they decide what they need. This particular individual focuses on small rural departments, and he is world-renowned. He was going from here to Israel and South Africa. And it's actually useful training as opposed to going to a conference, sitting in a room and coming back and filing an expense report type training.
Could it be something we do every other year?
No. This
I know
is-
we have to cut $400,000.
No, trust me, this stuff, the type of thing they're doing,
We don't want a
The fact
Uvalde
that-
on our hands.
that he is able to schedule us, this needs to stay in.
And the other training, the 3,200, they can personalize. So if I am the person who registers all sex offenders, then I might be the officer that goes to the sex offender workshop thing. So well, that type of training, every officer should have it and will help all of them. They do have some training funds available to personalize training based on specialties or interests in the department.
I'm just curious if, like, if it's something that they're required to do, or are they like paying attention to national news and say, oh shoot, we better be prepared for that? Or if you look at just, if you focus on hot springs, like, are these threats that you actually see in hot springs?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I mean,
Yeah.
active shooter training, I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't take it, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, very good question,
Yeah.
thank
I
you.
don't think-
I don't want to, disparage veterans. I took care of them for 30 years, and I give them all the respect, but we have a town full of veterans with PTSD and mental health issues, and they could do all sorts of things.
That brings up another
With the
point.
training.
Should we then
Should we what?
have them if they're at risk?
They're here. We're a veterans town. We have been from our inception.
Not
So then
the
you have
feeling.
these two clashing forces.
Yeah, to be clear though, we can't solve all those problems here, this is our budget.
This is
The
a-
travel and conference,
It's just the things that are out there, they're here.
They've this is probably the wisest training selection I've seen since I've been involved in public safety.
I've also heard last year during our budget classes and then by the presentations at our council meetings from the chief that our expanded training budget has allowed for him to recruit more officers than if we didn't have it. As officers can now see that continued training and education is a priority in our community, and it has assisted him in recruiting officers to have an opportunity for.
So you've got the salary increases, which is a goodie, now you've got the training, which is a goodie. Could one substitute for the other?
Nope.
I doubt it.
So we had a former Fall River County State's Attorney, I hope I get this right, his comment was, the only thing more expensive than an overtrained police department is an undertrained police department. If they find themselves in a situation that went south, and it was because of a lack of training, open up your checkbook. And the comment has been made before, well, we live in Hot Springs. Well, yeah, we do. But the world is changing when it comes to active shooter training. I advocate every year to spend $4,000 and never need to use it up at the school. But when we need to use it, they need to have the training.
The number of calls involving weapons each year
They're growing.
is very unsettling.
All right, we ready to move on from travel and conference?
Yeah, it's only up by, what, 600?
Yep, I am.
Telephone, 3,000, electricity, 4,500, cell phone, 7,000. We added in-car computers, so for coverage, that added 4,000 to that budget. We have 3,000 for smartphones. The reason that went down a little bit is they've now all had their smartphones for more than 2 years. So when they're new lines, it's $35 a month. After they've had it for 2 years, it's $15 a month. So 7,000 includes the in-car computer MiFi and the smartphones for all officers. Our DARE program, we talked about when we were in revenue, fully funded by donations. So although you see that in here budgeted, you have offsetting revenue in your general fund for the exact same dollar amount. So the net effect to your budget, 0. That started in 2016, and all the donations cover all the expenses. Machinery and equipment, I left the notes in there for the request, but we removed the $80,000. That's the projected cost for a fully outfitted new vehicle. So if we skip it in 2024, just be prepared for that dollar amount or bigger in 2025, because they do need or wanted to replace the 2014 Ford Explorer, which they're going to keep on for another year. But
And at the high recommendation of our city mechanic, he wants us to get away from Dodges and go to Fords. Actually, he wants us to go to Chevys, but I don't think Chevy makes a police package.
computer software, we have 11,700. We pay Custer County a portion of the Zerker software, that's 3,500. Our in-car computers require software, annually is 6,000. We have a when-to-work scheduling software, and then the Leads Online that you approved this year or last year, totaled at $11,700. And then you have a new, in 2023, 5-year lease agreements for tasers and body cameras, and those total $14,450 for payments in 2024, for a total police department budget of $875,440. That one went up.
How many individuals is this covering? 8?
And we have one full-time admin. So we have 8 full-time officers and 1 full-time admin.
You have 875?
440. Did you take the 80 out?
I never had the 8.
My
I
80
got the
was-
874, 690.
Let me start from the top, maybe
Please.
the additions. 572,900,
Yep,
43,900,
yep,
46,100,
yep,
13,000,
yep,
72,600,
yep,
1,750,
yep,
15,200,
yep,
66,90,
yep,
7,500,
yep.
750.
Well,
Uh-huh.
instead of 1,100?
1,100 goes under the 750.
Oh.
So building repairs, 750, equipment repairs, and maintenance, 1,100.
Okay,
Skip one, 8,500,
yep,
9,100,
yep,
800,
yep,
20,000,
yep,
12,400.
yep,
Skip one, 3,000,
yep,
4,500.
yep,
Skip, 7,000.
yep,
Skip, 2,500,
yep,
11,700,
yep,
14,450.
yep,
875, 440.
bingo.
All right. Ready to move on from the police department?
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Can we recap real quick? So
Sure.
we increased, what's our new deficit after this? Close to 500?
That's why we use
Came here,
the
okay.
spreadsheets. Our new deficit is 494,397.
Just show up.
And we're gonna take a break, about a 15, 20-minute break?
494, 397?
494,397 right now.
Carl, did you get his cut?
6:20 at the table. You're welcome to just eat, but is it all right if we keep, you're good? Okay. So next on the list is development coordinator. That's on page 10.
Understand what I have to say, but, okay.
Yeah, just raise your hand. We can wait till you're done chewing and swallow if you have something to say. Development coordinator, we skipped over support services and fire because we did that already. The development coordinator department has 1 full-time development coordinator and then the 3/4 time full-time admin assistant. We have 96,000 estimated for salaries and wages, 7,400 for payroll taxes, 5,800 for retirement, 325 for workman's compensation, 18,300 for group insurance, $225 for unemployment, $770 for insurance, 200 for services and fees, 200 for publishing. They do some legal ads and some public notices. Nothing in vehicle repairs. The 2008 Dodge Durango, Scott says the sensor for traction control needs replaced and it's currently unsafe. I have, is this vehicle even necessary? This is one of the ones on my list that I said we should put more money into crap vehicles. Supplies, we have 850. Nothing in gas, oil, and diesel. We don't have a vehicle that we traverse in. We don't need gas. Travel and conference, we have 1,500. He belongs to the South Dakota Planners Group, and there's an annual conference, and then the International Code Council membership and the South Dakota Builder membership. Telephone, 1,080. Cell phone, 300. And books, 500 for updated IBC and IRC books. I have 133,450. You had, in your services and fees, you had 1,000. We dropped that, the mayor and I, after visiting last week on Friday, to 200 because the additional 800 was for a printer he wanted in his office. And It was determined that he can use the printer everybody else uses.
200.
So that did drop to 200, so the dollar amount's a little bit different. 133,450 is what I have for total for development coordinator.
What's the job description of this?
It's building inspector, code enforcement, planning administrator. We changed the title to development coordinator, but the job encompasses all of those functions.
He sits, he's the city representative on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yep.
Historic preservation.
All right, so the next one is highways, streets, and roadways. When we talked on Tuesday, I pointed out kind of how we budget for salaries and wages in this department because city maintenance employees share in the activities of highway, streets, and roadways, snow removal, street lighting, street cleaning, cemetery, and parks. So they have 7 full-time, 2 seasonal part-time, and seven full-time, 2 seasonal part-time, and 1 seasonal part-time that's shared between other departments. We have $325,500 estimated for salaries and wages, $25,000 payroll taxes, $19,400 retirement, workman's comp, $13,500. They're rated higher, like the police is more dangerous. Group insurance, $62,500. Unemployment, $1,075. Insurance, $16,060. Services and fees, we have $8,000. That includes random drug testing, fire extinguisher testing, recharge, delivery fees, specialty services for large tree removals. When we can obtain a CWT worker, this is where we pay them out of. It's not a consistent source, but when we get the opportunity, it's the right fit, we like to take advantage of it. And so as you look back historically, this budget has fluctuated significantly because it depends on if there's somebody available for that or not. Vehicle repairs, we have $17,500. The equipment is 1 year older and prices increase. Year to date, they've spent 15% of their $17,500 budget we gave them last year. And besides an odd year where there was a bunch of damage, they've not come close to that figure. If you wanted to look at or discuss decreasing that a little, you could, with the understanding that if something significant happened that insurance didn't cover, they do have older pieces of equipment. Does anybody want to propose a lower amount or any different amount in vehicle repairs?
I would propose maybe 15,000.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with lowering that one to 15? Like I said, they have 17.5 budgeted this year and have spent 15% of it. And historically, besides a year where something significant happened, it seems like, did you say 15? Would be enough to cover. But if something did happen, then we'll be back in front of you asking for additional money to cover the repairs. Everybody okay with changing that to 15? Yeah, okay. A little bit here, a little bit there.
Is this the group that's sitting on the project now on the road construction?
This and utilities. Highway, streets, and roadways and utilities
So
both.
these guys are pretty important too.
They, yes,
These are our
absolutely.
snow removal guys.
Street cleaning, parks, well, we'll get to parks, but, building repairs, we have 3,500. They're looking to seal the doors and they need new door handles and locks. We just found all those door handles and locks at City Hall, but they're old and we can't find the keys.
Oh, what did you drop equipment repairs to, sorry?
Vehicle repairs is 15,000. We haven't gotten to equipment
Okay.
repairs yet.
Okay, so we knocked 2,500 off.
Yep, we're at 3,500 for building repairs. Equipment repairs, we're at 33,000. They need hydraulics on S29 white dump truck and tires for the little loader, and then other equipment repairs. Did we want to talk about that amount? Or okay leaving it?
Have any clue what the
What's the cost of the hydraulic repair and tires?
33,000 is what they needed in total. I'm sorry, I don't have a detail of the specific.
If
number came from Adam,
And Billy.
I'd leave it alone.
Street walk repairs, they have 20,000. That's just for patchwork. Major projects are paid by the 212 fund, including repairs to alleys and unpaid street millings. Supplies, we have 3,000. Clothing, 4,000. That's $400 each for 7 full-time employees, which includes clothing and boots, and $100 each for part-time employees, 2.5. We again separated out and added money for PPE, 2,250. Janitorial supplies, we have 1,500. Minor tools, we have 4,000. Gas, oil, and diesel, 18,000. Signs, we have 8,600. There are several street signs that need replaced, and they're also requesting 11 new crosswalk signs at a total cost of 4,600. And those are those big base signs that sit in the crosswalk that can be knocked down. The ones that they, the ones that they took out, that was in use last year, they're all in pretty bad shape, so.
Now, those run around $350 a piece, and that's one of the, as much as I'd like to cut some out of that, that's probably one of the most frequent things we get requested in public safety is, could you put a crosswalk sign up at
Wherever, fill in the blank.
here and there and everywhere, mostly at schools, in front of the Evans,
They are targeted.
yeah. And maybe once the road project is done and if the more permanent scoring goes in, we may not need all that, but it's probably a better estimate than we've had in the past.
I wonder if they've gone up a little bit, because I just took 4,600 divided by 11, and that's about $418 a piece,
That's
but
probably,
probably about right with shipping and,
Last I knew, a couple of years ago, it was 350.
yeah.
okay. Travel and conference, 1,500, telephone, 1,250, electricity, 10,800, propane, 12,000. They have the big tank. We've talked about a lot, for those of you that are new, the great big oversized tank at the street department. It can take a tanker load, but it needs to be almost empty when it does. And you can get better pricing on a tanker load than you can get on your keep full as needed. So we hope we got the gauges fixed and we have no more emergency purchases of propane. We have 12,000 as an estimate in there. Cell phone, 800. Our superintendent and foreman both upgraded to smartphones. Superintendent and city mechanic, that should say, because the foreman actually uses a personal phone. I don't know how that got wrong in there, but it's actually the superintendent and the mechanic that have smartphones. Machinery and equipment is where you'll see 55,000, and 50 of that is for a steel-faced utility compactor. That's like a roller, what we were calling that a steel-faced roller before, but it's actually a utility compactor. It'd be 4 foot. We had a great discussion about why this is necessary, why they need it, what it's gonna do for them, and why they're choosing the smaller piece of equipment. Do you want to share?
A couple of weeks ago, we had a contractor come in and do the asphalt replacement on Albany Avenue out by Colebrook, and there were other areas. In doing that, the city prepped the areas for the asphalt folks to come in, and the current steel face roller that they had broke right before the contractor was ready to come in. They were able to get through that, but what they had said was that in these smaller patch areas, those big steel-faced rollers are just awkward to try to maneuver in the smaller areas. So that's why they're going with the 4 foot one. It gives them more flexibility in being able to patch the areas.
Okay, this was on my list, could we knock 50,000 off? Is this one of the one-time?
Yes, it's on my list as one, and the mobile lift for 5,000 is on my list of capital investment or improvement.
And this is really
It should last a lot longer than 1 year. Maybe another one.
This is really what our guys do, is the small, we dig up the street to fix the water repair, we throw some gravel in, we compact it, and then we bring in towards the end of the season, we make minor asphalt repairs, and this is what either allows us, is this for compacting gravel, asphalt, or both?
Yes.
Whatever the material is.
Whatever, so this either allows us to do a better job of prepping for the contractor, or a better job of making our own hot mix repairs.
My understanding is they were able to fix the other one, and that's gonna be going to the airport, I think, get a new one too. Is that what you remember, Claude?
Well, that was my question, was the other one fixable, or where's that?
They didn't think it was. They know they need a new one for the amount of time that they use it and what they use it for and the current shape our roads are in.
We have the
But they
Lookout
were
Street,
able to
too.
fix it, and so the airport is interested in the old one.
And we have the Lookout Street that they're going to be topping once the new pipe is put in too.
Look out in Walnut.
Walnut.
Those types of repairs, and I feel that the smaller one will give them more flexibility.
Computer software is next, computer and software, that's where we put the laptop. They're looking for a laptop for use with their new fix system. The two of those together equal $2,200. They've been using the fix system for a year now. It is our work order management system, and then they want to expand its use. It has the capability to keep track of the maintenance on each and every vehicle that the city mechanic does. So if he had a laptop and he could be working on the vehicle at the time and documenting, it would help him manage the fleet. So they've had the fixed system already, so that $1,400 isn't new. The laptop's new. That just gives him some flexibility and will allow him to use the system more. And then we have year 3 of a 6-year lease for wheel loader. And so we have that principal and interest payment, principal $31,088, interest $4,310 in 2024 for a total in highway, streets, and roadways, a new updated total of $702,833. Ready?
No increases on salaries for these guys?
Theirs is built in, like everyone else that we've talked about with the 15%. I just didn't have an increase other than the admin position built in for the police department because they got them previously. So that is the only one where we'll have to add in money for the increases that are being proposed.
This is the only one we'll add in?
The police department is the only one we have to add in. All the others are already built in. Besides that 15% increase to top of step that's built in, we also have built in the 85-cent COLA, and then the increase to the longevity from 0.5 to 0.1%. All right, we already did snow removal, but if you remember, there's $115,000 in there that's on my list for capital investments or improvements that we could consider one-time expense, because we approved that medium-duty snow plow with accessories that they requested. So skip past street cleaning, street lighting, and get to nuisance and complaints. So this department goes along with that development coordinator department. It's a budget that he's responsible for. In this department, we have contracted services for the last couple years from code enforcement specialists. They come and help us identify code violations and then help us with the steps that are necessary to take to hopefully remediate those issues. So we have $4,000 in services and fees for the contracted service that's provided. And then I have highlighted the $10,000 in repairs and maintenance for us to address localized cleanups and collaborate with property owners that have properties with issues. I have it highlighted primarily because we budgeted for this for several years and we never seem to do anything with it, and increasing it is not going to change that action.
Do we have a, like,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Like the police, we have report logs of all the, like, we can kind of quantify what's going on with them. Is there something here?
I don't think we
Like,
do
do
that
we
with
log the
police logs
nuisances?
either. With the
Well, we got the
contracted service,
calls,
yes,
right.
he gives us the list of all the properties and the letters that go out, so we do have.
So there's a list of complaints that are made.
When we first started this 2 years ago, using this guy, and then we didn't use him to his full potential, we initially sent out 144 letters to different people who were in violation of ordinances. And that first letter, we got like a 60% compliance improvement. And
Just sent out a bunch more too. I was asking Ariel if she remembered the number.
how many?
We don't remember the number.
But it has been improvement, and now I think we've just reactivated utilizing Joel's services because Scott wasn't being able to keep up, but we also just got Natalie, and she's been improving greatly on the responses and the letters, and
Keeping up on
you know, it's just been wonderful having an admin person to back Scott up in this in particular. So,
I do think that the 10 could probably go to 5. I'd like to see a year of you reaching 5 before you double
Well,
it.
you know, with Natalie doing all the letters and addressing them and all that stuff, my question is, when is this contract up for renewal?
We just renewed it for another year, and she's not going out, and he drives around and looks at the properties, identifies the bike. She's just assisting with letters. She's not gonna get in a car and drive around town and check up on nuisance properties, so he would still be needed,
And again, this 10,000 is,
not part of
we
that.
hire Al to go out, excuse me, and clean up a property
And pay him.
and pay him and then assess the landowner. So this is us contracting with someone to clean up that. It has nothing to do with the contract. This is actually abating
The
the
nuisance.
property. Until we really get into a full stride, I think 5,000. And if we
See
have a
it?
really
Great.
great year, I would be willing to supplementally appropriate or use contingency if we. Am I
What's their
missing something there?
year-to-date? Do we have a year-to-date use?
0. There's 5,000 this year too. There was 5,000 the year before, and we used 0.
Drop from 5.
We're dropping it to 5.
Yeah.
So if we drop it, then the problems aren't gonna go away, obviously, right?
No,
But
we're
we're
still-
dropping it because it's not being used to its potential.
We'll still have $9,000 budgeted towards it. Well, the reason we're dropping it is because we haven't used the 5,000 we've been giving, so it doesn't make sense to increase it to another 5 when our actions aren't currently equaling any use of the dollars, so.
So it's not really being used.
And I'll be
at all.
happy to go over and clean up the yard.
If you pay me $9,000. So, and then we have 50 for random materials, supplies and materials, for a total now of $9,050 instead of $14,050. I agree, I'd love to see us use it all, I'd love to see us make a difference. I don't like the idea of the city paying to clean up a delinquent property owner's property, but honestly, there are times that they can't do it themselves, and if we're gonna make a difference, we're gonna have to do that.
So to give you a little update, Joel and Scott went out on July 11th and canvassed the city. And the report that Joel gave us back, there are 117 properties on the list. They're broken down by wards. Natalie's position, I've been very sensitive to the fact that when Natalie was hired, when the position was hired, it was not to be solely an assistant to the building inspector, code enforcement. It was supposed to assist as needed. So once we get a handle on this, then ideally Natalie will be available for other assistants. It's not, the intent of the hire was not to be a full-time assistant to Scott. But right
gets going and we start really cleaning these things up and the homeowner pays us, they don't pay us.
If the homeowner wanted to be compliant, they would be compliant with their own dollars.
No, I.
The letters that warn them go out and tell them to do it. This money would be spent in the event, like, I remember Kim did one with somebody, it was an estate. The owner passed away, his children inherited it, they didn't know where to start with cleanup, they didn't have the funds while the estate was settling to clean up. So an option that we have when we do expend money to do these type of cleanups on someone else's property is to assess that to their property taxes. So when the estate settled and the house sold, we were able to collect what we assessed against the
So
property.
if there's a property that doesn't comply, is there a set fine?
This would be,
There's no penalty?
not fines, we're not talking about revenue here, this would be cost the city incurs to clean up their property.
Well, I
And
read-
what, we don't assess fines to their property value, we're not allowed to do that to their property taxes, just the
We
cleanup
are with
abatement.
demolition by neglect on the sandstone buildings, to clarify that.
With legal help, yeah, with the significant legal expenses, but.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's actually no recourse that we have if the people don't clean up their yard.
Yes, our option is we'll have $5,000 to go clean up for them, and then whatever we spend on the abatement, we can assess towards our property tax. We can't assess fines that we're applying, but we can assess any expenses towards the property
So
tax
that would pay
abatement.
back the 5,000.
If we're able to collect it.
That was my point.
Yeah.
Just essentially put a lien on the property.
It gets added to their property taxes when they get paid.
And depending on what the cleanup, 5,000 isn't gonna take you very far. Misty was talking about when Kim Barbieri was city administrator, there was one property up on College Hill that, one property took $2,300 to clean it up.
Ideally, we can encourage our people with the letters and the nice requests to get them cleaned up. All right, we ready to move on from nuisance and complaints?
Okay.
We got 9,050. Our next one is airport. Mayor and I made a few adjustments, and I think we talked about those. Let me look at my notes because I crossed them out. We took off the fuel truck and the striping machine, and then we're going to talk about the reconditioned scissor lift. That's at the bottom of machinery and equipment. So we'll just go ahead and start at the top with salaries and wages. We have just a full-time airport manager, and then we have summer help May through August. So we have 44,000 salaries and wages. 3,400 payroll taxes, 2,500 retirement, 975 workman's comp, 10,450 for group insurance, 155 for unemployment, 6,435 for insurance, 3,500 for services and fees. That's made up of the MSA stands for multi-service aviation. They bill us for the credit card processing fees. We have fire extinguisher inspections, air nav, and septic pumping is new this year. He said he needs to have his septic pumped. Vehicle repairs, we have 5,000, which is a $1,200 per vehicle estimate for the 05 Dodge Ram, which the manager drives. 99 Dodge Durango, which is a courtesy car, 05 Ford Freestyle, which is a courtesy car, and the 2000 Chrysler minivan, which is a courtesy car. Seems a little high, but those are older vehicles, and we do make revenue off the courtesy cars. But if you wanted to talk about cutting some budgets, you may want to consider that number. Knowing that if something significant happened.
He's done a lot of work on those, on the courtesy cars.
And he still only spent 26% of his budget this year.
I think we could, currently, he brings the Dodge Ram to the Mueller Center.
Travels back and forth 4 times a day.
Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate.
I don't either.
So I think that needs to stop. I think the IRS would consider that a needs to be paying mileage on. So that needs to, I believe that needs to stay at the airport, which would drop the mileage on that vehicle significantly. So I think we could maybe save at least 1,000, if not 2,000 there. And now I'm just guessing at that.
Yeah, 2250 was what's budgeted this year. We've used 602, and I would agree there were some repairs done on the courtesy vehicles, both 2022 and 2023. $1,200 per vehicle was an estimate that I think Adam helped him come up with. But I do think it's, I mean, do we want to put $1,200 into a 1999 Dodge Durango if it needs work, or do we want to get, if it needs that much work, then tires are one thing, but tires are good on all of these,
Yeah,
so.
these need to be safe to drive. They do not need to be luxury vehicles.
So 3,000, 3,500?
Say 3,000.
Bill, how many of them are courtesy vehicles?
Three.
I think those would be the ones you'd really be concerned about.
Well, and they have good tires and they operate, they're functioning
Yeah.
currently, so. Okay, so we said 3, yeah, I'm changing that to 3. Building repairs and maintenance, that we have 10,000 there. He wants to remove an old well shed that was used to power the sprinklers, install updated electrical meter and power pole. He has $500 estimated. On the terminal, he would like to install gutters, drain pipe, and repair the soffit at $500. He would like to replace 32 lights in this, LED lights in the city hangar at $5,000. He would like to seal the cinder block on the old city hangar at $500, and he would like to insulate the machine shed at $3,000.
Okay, can I address some of that stuff?
Absolutely.
The only thing there that I see mission critical that might have a payoff is the way the lights in the new city hangar are. Those use a lot of electricity. And if we do go ahead and spend the $5,000 to replace them with LEDs, we'll probably save that in the next couple years on electricity. Everything else, I think, is either cosmetic or I don't think we need to be putting money on the old city hangar.
They moved to 5.
I would, that's my recommendation. I think we drop that to 5,
How
replace.
about the electrical meter for the sprinklers? Or wait, no,
Install updated electrical meter and power pole.
the use, oh, that's,
Those all
Never
go
mind.
together. No, you're right, those all go together.
Oh.
And I would recommend, if you do 5, I would recommend at least 5,500 in case there's some other building repairs and maintenance that he deems necessary. And maybe he can get the lights installed for less and then do one of these other, if you give him
because if he
55.
hasn't used this year's money, he could use that money for what, a couple of these.
Yeah, if there's a reason for that electrical meter to split out, I don't know what the reason for that is. If it's to, if the additional electric, the power pole is to have a separate meter for South Dakota Wildland Fire.
They already have their own.
If it's to give Southern Hills Aviation a separate electrical meter.
I think it's for the sprinklers, which I don't know why there's grass. I don't know why we're paying so much money in water and sprinklers, because our airport isn't, like, doesn't need to be pretty.
I would drop it
Just
to
needs to
either
be
5 or
functional.
5,500.
I would recommend 5,500.
He should be using that money for,
He might be
Insulating
setting it
the
aside
machine
because
shed.
he's over 100% in some of his other budgeted line items. They have the flexibility sometimes. So 55, does anybody have an objection to 55 on that number? Thank you for the good discussion. And then maybe at the next airport advisory, you can ask him about that electrical meter. My understanding is it's gonna just be for the sprinklers, because he wants to get rid of the old one.
Are we currently within budget?
In the airport? I don't have the total, but he has 1,
He's close.
2, 3, 4 line items already that are over 100%. But I don't have the printout that tells me that, did you just pull it up? Last month?
Last year.
Oh.
I don't know.
So I was
Go
just
all the way back to that.
wondering on the electrical meter and the power pole, doesn't the power company install those?
I think that is the remove old well shed used to power sprinklers and install updated electrical meter and power pole. 500 was total for all that.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's removal and tear down, but yeah, I would think the electric company.
If it doesn't have to be done, if it's not a safety issue, I don't think we spend the money.
Well, and if you give him 55, there's 5,000 for the LED lights and 500 for that, if that's what he deems necessary to do, so. All right, equipment repair and maintenance, we have 5,000. That's mower blades, snowplow blade, edges for the tractor, airport maintenance, lines, lamps, reflectors, gates, fencing, large hangar door valve control. We have 2,000 in supplies, that's printer ink, batteries, paint, airport lighting parts. 5,500 for airport fuel resale. 55,000, thank you. It's not even 8 o'clock yet. Thank you for catching me. 55,000 for airport fuel for resale. 500 for janitorial supplies. 500 for minor tools. 4,000 for agricultural supplies. Weed spray and chemicals, noxious weed control, 2,000. And then 2,000 for grass seed around private hangars. Talking about what we need.
I know he's overspent on herbicides this year. Part of it is he's really, and this is, he's had a lot of input from the pilots and the balloon people about trying to control cockleburrs.
They're nasty out in that part of the country.
Because it's
So-
sand.
The goat's heads.
Because it's sand.
So that's in around the private hangars. So he has been working hard at weed control. And I think the grass seed around the private hangars is to try to,
Gotta water grass.
Just trying
Want
to
it
dress
to
them
grow.
up. No? Just trying to dress them up.
no, I think his goal is if you plant grass, then maybe the weeds won't grow. Doesn't work.
Having some sprinkler requests next year for more, and then increase water sales, water the grass, because if you want to grow grass out there, I live out there.
Yeah. I,
Leave it?
well, I'm not
2,000?
convinced, I'd want to kill the weeds. I'm not convinced grass is going to grow around the hangars.
2,000 is still a $500 increase over this year.
I'm not sure that's going to be enough to kill everything that's, shouldn't be growing out there.
2,500?
Sounds like it's toxic out there.
I'd go with 2,500, and if we have to supplementally appropriate,
That's 1,000 more than I got this year to handle it, so you think, anybody object to 2,500 as opposed to 4,000 and take out the grass seed at this point? The goal or focus should be to control the weeds, and then we'll talk about grass later. I'm sorry?
I was just thinking, do we need to make a policy on
Okay, here's my spiel on policies. You pass them, who enforces them? I don't get support probably at least 50% of the time when I try to enforce a policy, you pass. So if you want to make a policy, that's fine, but we're gonna have to figure out who's gonna enforce it, and then make sure you back me up when I do.
That's something you can talk about at airport advisory. You were talking about those goat heads. They're tough to kill. You literally have to dig them out
And burn them.
and burn it.
That's what we
Right.
do.
What I had to do in my backyard, I had
Spray,
it,
spray, spray,
is
spray.
I dug a foot around where the base of the plant went in. Bagged all that, came back with my shop vac, and 15 feet each side of that, shop vac that whole thing,
Wow.
sucking up dirt and rock and you name
To
it,
get the seed.
to get the seeds that have dropped from, because when it comes out and goes, it goes.
I know he talked to, because I ran into him there, our weed and pest people from Fall River County. He was at that office, and she was giving him some advice, telling him what you're doing is just wasting money on spray, and you're not gonna kill him doing that, and then she gave him some advice on steps to take more than just spraying it. So probably part of what's happened this year is him trying something new, because just spraying them
You
is just.
gotta dig them up.
We asked him to go talk.
He did, I ran into him there, so I know he's working on it.
But I don't have them.
Okay,
So 2,500, gas, oil, and diesel, 4,000, travel and conference, 700, telephone, 2,500, electricity, 8,200, propane, 5,500. They do have a water expense because they pay Fall River water users for their water services. Cell phone, $540, manager has a smartphone. Improvements other than buildings, we have 5,500. He'd like to install rock parking area outside of large city hangar, 1,500, and then 4,000 for new gravel for his parking lot.
so the new proposed amount for that? 0?
Okay. I've driven on it, it's not, especially the 4,000 for.
And I know that sounds a little harsh and facetious, but the gravel parking outside the large city hangar, there's parking there now because that's where Southern Hills Aviation is. Their goal is, once their business is established, they want to build their own building in the commercial area of the airport, which is south of the access road, which is over by the old hangar, kind of west of where South Dakota Wildland Fire is. And so, once that happens, there won't be people parked outside as a general rule, outside the city hangar. Yeah, if there's gravel for the most part in front of the terminal building now, when it's snowy and wet, it's a little muddy. Life is hard.
Okay. Anybody object to removing that 5,500? That's our biggest decrease of the night, thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Machinery and equipment, 18,500. This is where we removed the fuel truck and the striping machine. We said we'd have a conversation about the reconditioned scissor lift with
The
you.
one that says 52.5 on ours.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So we removed all the 18.5 because we took out the 30,000 for the fuel truck and the 4,000 for the striping machine. The new pump card reader is a necessity at 1,000. The reconditioned scissor lift, the mayor has some thoughts to share on that. And then there's also 2,500 for hangar floor scrubber. When we get to the Mueller Center, he wants a new floor scrubber, so I don't know if there's a possibility to work some stuff out there. But I don't know why, I don't know how hard it is to scrub the hangar floor, so I'm not gonna speak on that. But if you wanna talk about the scissor lift.
Well, the scissor lift and the Jet 8 fuel truck, I'd like to see that note removed completely. We have been talking for the longest time since the city took over the fuel system at the airport. We recognized we had to. It's a little tough to fly planes if we don't have fuel.
We tried to sell it, nobody would buy it at the
Yep.
time.
But getting into Jet 8 fuel isn't anything that I would advocate for. It's just a headache way to happen. If we're gonna do that, then we've talked about doing it through a fixed base of operation or fixed base operator, and just take a cut off of it. You folks see the resolutions to change fuel prices come through to try to stay competitive.
Well,
I think it needs to be removed so that next year it isn't a discussion, an item that we want, we couldn't afford it last year, let's work it into the budget somehow this year.
the truck too is just a fuel truck, so it would take, the airport manager would have to be called out to disperse the fuel, invoice you for the fuel. It doesn't have a fueling system that it'd be connected to or anything, so it's just a fuel truck.
Airport Advisory has talked about this, and yeah, it would be nice because, but they agree it is not for the airport at this time. We sell enough 100 octane, low lead aviation fuel, it's not a problem. Jet A, which is a kerosene-based fuel, has additives in it, and it has a relatively short shelf life. So if you buy 1,000 gallons, if you don't sell that 1,000 gallons within a month or two, it starts, the additives will start settling out. And so the filtering system and the liabilities that go along with it are just not worth it. So unless you're a high volume dealer, and like Misty said, with a fuel truck, it's not somebody running up there, running their credit card, hooking your ground wire up and filling your tank up, even though it's gonna be maybe 100 gallons or so instead of the 15, 20 gallons. It's gonna be whoever's working at the airport is gonna be doing that work.
Which he's not there 24/7.
So it is a non-starter, and we've had that discussion time and time and time again.
I wonder how it showed up on here.
So,
That's good, that's been why they keep coming up.
Well, this is the request that was received from the airport manager,
so the
fuel
Airport
truck's out.
Advisory Committee does not support this.
Okay.
The former council member on the Airport Advisory Committee does not support this. It has been communicated to the airport manager that it is not supported by the city.
Did I also hear you say, Mayor, that the reconditioned scissor lift for 15,000 needs to come off too?
So
For the
3.5.
few times, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting the mayor and you, for the few times that elevated access is needed in the new city hangar, even though it's several years old now, it has to be rented for a minimal fee. The payoff on $15,000 for a reconditioned scissor lift,
That may need a separate trailer.
it is gonna be, the payoff isn't there.
We had talked about if it's necessary and we have so many departments that need it, you know, maybe our maintenance department needs to have one and then share it with these facilities. Because one of the things we heard from two departments when talking about scissor lifts is the place that it's available for rent in our area, it's almost always out. It's really hard to get it. So maybe not for the airport budget, but I thought I remembered us discussing, you know, if
And-
it gets to a point where we need one for the city, then we should get it and then share it.
And I'm not sure where it would be stored, because right now we're at 100% occupancy in both hangars. So,
Okay, so that takes another 15 out, and I'm removing that from the notes completely, so it doesn't come back next year as a request for both the fuel truck and the reconditioned
Did you
scissors.
send this sheet over to departments so they?
They've all got it, yeah. And as I mentioned on Tuesday, so I fill in the things like electricity and propane and salaries and wages and any loans, so those don't get missed, but they fill in the rest and put in their request. That's what gets presented to you.
So we took it down to 3.5?
We're still gonna talk about the hangar floor scrubber. Hopefully.
And they're concrete floor.
it's concrete painted floor. I think it's painted.
Is it necessary?
I-
So it's going sweeping.
My number
Why
on
can't
this.
it be power washed? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine. My number on this line item was 1,000 for the QT fueling pump card reader.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
That's a necessity, okay.
Rick's not.
What's that?
So Rick's not.
1,000. Like I said, when we get to the Mueller Center, there's a request for a new floor scrubber there, so maybe we can do something. I don't know about the condition of the one here, but when we get there, we'll talk about that. All right, and then last, computer software, he needs a new modem at $200, and then our QT Pod software annual fee is $945. I laugh when I get to that one, because last year, he said, oh, I'll just use that money for something else that he overspent on, and I was like, but you still owe QT Pod for your annual software fee. You can't just spend it somewhere else just because you haven't spent it yet. So I laugh at that one, but now we have $1,145 for a new modem and the annual software fee for the fueling station. So now I have $170,000 in the airport as a total. Does that match yours?
Yep.
Now we're back to 450,000.
All right, we're ready to move on. The next one is cemeteries. We have one full-time and one part-time seasonal employee that make up $52,500 for salaries and wages, $4,020 for payroll taxes, $2,850 for retirement, $1,325 for workman's comp, $10,300 for group insurance, $200 for unemployment, $605 for insurance, $4,600 for services and fees, that's weed spraying and chemicals. Vehicle repairs, she drives a 2000 Dodge Ram pickup, we have $500. Equipment repairs, that's for blades, belts, pulleys, and fuel filters, we have $500. Sewer water repairs, that's for faucets, fittings, water spigots, and water line leak repairs, we have $300. Supplies, we have $200, as most PPE and supplies come from streets and parks. Janitorial supplies, we have $75. Minor tools, we have $550, and they need a lift for mower maintenance. That's the priority for that increase. Agricultural supplies, they have $600, it's grass seed and wasp spray. Gas, oil, and diesel, $1,800. Travel and conference, $400. She attends the safety conference annually. Being in attendance to that and participating gets us loss control credits in the thousands. Electricity, we have $500. And machinery and equipment, we have $17,700. $17,000 of that is for a zero-turn mower. In my notes, I point out that that was promised to the cemetery board by the city administrator in 2022. If they bought one in 2022, we would buy one in 2024. If you all remember, those of you that were here. And then $700 for a weed eater multi-tool. And then $725 in computer software. That's a new line item for this budget. We're just transferring the hosting of the cemetery records from general government buildings to cemetery. When we moved from our Robert Sharp and Associates for our website hosting to GovOffice, GovOffice could not move or take over the cemetery records hosting, and it's great with more people buried in our cemetery than live in town, so it's huge. The cemetery records are huge. So they kept that piece of it. It's linked to the website, but they still do the hosting for that. So it just made sense for that to come out of cemetery since it's a cemetery expense. So we just moved it from one to the other. I have a total of $1,250, and I really don't see anything you can cut in here.
Is the safety conference split between highway, street, cemeteries, because it's central?
No, but they like to send somebody with her.
Ours has 725.
In what? So, yeah, that's what it is, $725 for computer software, and a total
You
of,
said 1,250.
oh, I'm sorry, $100,250 for a
Oh.
total.
Okay.
I probably left out a zero. Anybody want to talk about anything? We good to move on? We already talked about transit. already talked about ACO, we already talked about recreation, we already talked about senior citizens activities, so that gets us to parks. In the Parks Department, we have one full-time year-round, one part-time year-round, and one part-time seasonal shared. So we have 75,000 projected for salaries and wages, 5,800 for payroll taxes, 3,250 for retirement, 2,550 for workman's comp, 10,425 for group insurance, 400 for unemployment, 4,510 for insurance, 12,500 in services and fees. That's weed spraying, all our parks and green spaces, and then the CWT worker when available. Vehicle repairs, we have 3,000. They have an 09 Chevy Silverado that needs new tires, and then they also drive a 94 Dodge Durango. Building repairs and maintenance of 2,000. I have 3,000 for equipment repairs and maintenance. In street walk repairs, we have 10,000. They've identified the Freedom Trail has many areas where the concrete needs repaired. And that's the majority of that 10,000 is for those repairs.
Is that from salt damage?
And settling, I'm gonna walk that trail, so the areas where I see it's significant, it looks like it's more like settling than salt damage.
Yeah.
It's big
Cracked
chunks of it.
corners.
Yeah.
No, excuse me, it's 10,000, does that cover the ped ramp that's going, that's been discussed?
No, this is just Freedom Trail concrete repairs.
I'll ask the ugly question. Is that a potential cut? And I would only say, can we defer it to another year, because will the crews have time to do it next year?
I think that's to contract the repairs, the estimate is to contract the repairs. And I think that it is been identified as a safety concern in a few areas where the city knows. And so, Bob, if you want to weigh in on what we discussed.
I'm more in line with Bill. If we're contracting it, I wonder how much we can get done for $10,000.
Yeah, especially under a contract, because a contractor probably wouldn't want to patch it, they would want to tear it out and replace it.
I think in the chunks that it's missing, you have to do that anyway.
Oh,
I don't think
okay.
there's,
Several places between Minnetonka and the park itself that need to be just taken out and replaced.
so, I mean, if you can cut whatever you like.
I mean, that's my only question, is if we were planning on doing it in-house and given my concern is next year, 2024, with the road project being from on North River going north, it just feels like that is going to draw on our city crews even more than what the road project is drawing on them this year. And that's been a lot. And if my assumption is wrong, fantastic. But are we going to have time, if we're planning on doing this in-house, are we going to have time to do the work?
Sounds like they think so.
I think if you guys make it a priority, they'll find time.
I can't ignore safety issues.
Yeah, there's two spots lit up, but just,
Yeah.
By the Legion, by the viaduct, there's.
and just up from the waterfall,
Mhm.
where the landslide was, there's two spaces, they have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been on it, so I can't, you know.
I'm on it every
And
day.
it's one of our premium showcase things.
Yep.
We really do need to make sure it's kept up. So,
We leaving it, taking it.
I say leave it, and I agree with Bob. We can't ignore a safety issue. And if those are definite safety issues, we need to address them. However, in I'm saying that if it has been identified as a safety issue, why haven't we been on it already trying to do something?
Because
They're looking for
manpower.
budget, yeah, they're looking for budget and time, so. But they did request it, so when you talk about their time and if they can do it, we didn't tell them it needed done, so.
Okay.
Leave it for now?
Yes.
All right, sewer water repairs, 2,500. The public is listening, if you stop vandalizing the bathrooms, we won't have to spend so much money repairing them. Okay, sorry.
Stand up on that soapbox.
Fence and tools, we have 32,000. They have 25,000 for a new softball fence, which has been put off before. And 7,000 for half of a soccer fence with the Hot Springs Youth Soccer Association paying the other half.
Well, given where we are this year, unless you're wanting to count that 25,000 as a one-time, I'd say drop the 25,000 for the softball fence and leave the 7,000 to partner with the soccer association.
Yeah, I don't have that on my list. And if everybody agrees, it's been bumped before, I can remove 25,000.
Maybe put up a sign, Sunday, be careful, because if you drive past the softball fields on Sunday, you could get hit with a softball.
There's a fence there currently, right?
It's like 4 foot, like when the adults play. There's been balls that land.
Yeah, they have catchers out between the fence and the road, I've seen.
Why don't you talk to Larry about having Parks and Rec talk about that? Might be something they can do, something about. So that if I take 25,000 off that, then I have 7,000 in there.
If someone could be writing a grant for that type of stuff,
For what? Fencing?
for a new fence.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of grants out there for fencing for parks. We see in our Municipal League magazine the types of grants that are available. There are some for lighting, and if we could find one, that'd be a great idea. Because we put this fence off several times, but in the position that we're in this year, I understand why it has to be put off again. So I have 7,000 in fence tools, with removing the new softball fence, but leaving the 7,000 in there if the soccer association can pay for half of it.
Gotta take advantage of any matching funds we can.
Supplies, 3,000. 550 for clothing, it's 400 for the full-time employee and 100 each for the part-time. 150 for PPE, and the reason that's lower is because primarily that stuff comes from streets. Janitorial supplies, 2,300. Minor tools, 2,000. Agricultural supplies, 2,000. Gas, oil, and diesel, 4,000. Signs, 500. Electricity, 8,000. Other current expense, we have 12,000. That's to replace some picnic tables with metal, with thermoplastic tables.
So those tables that are just covered in plastic that can be vandalized with a knife?
This thermoplastic can be heated up. If it is vandalized, so it's like mesh and it's around the mesh, and if it's cut or something, you can heat it up and it can seal itself.
Oh. Okay.
We did it this year. We did, but we need more, and it bought us, I was trying to remember, six total for handicap and 2 regular. So 12,000 this year, which we just ordered them, you don't see it out yet. But that was one of the conversations Bob wanted me to have with this department, is why didn't you order tables yet? For 12,000, we were able to get 6 new tables, 4 handicap or ADA accessible tables and 2 regular tables.
Okay. And where are they going?
Well, we haven't even gotten them yet, but they were talking about Centennial and moving them the Centennial tables to other places. And I don't have that on my list either.
Because these are left out year-round, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
What's the guarantee on the warranty?
I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head.
You'd like that.
stay or go?
Come on, the bad guy, I'll be the bad guy tonight. If we had cut it in half, how bad would that impact what we're doing?
We'd get 3 instead of 6.
What was the downside? You're still gonna have the same tables? I mean, are they?
We typically spend a lot of time in the winter rebuilding.
Refurbishing our wood tables.
refurbishing wood tables.
Yeah, because I thought we were just gonna go with just plain metal tables.
There's something about them being hot and not being able to repair. Bob, do you remember what they talked about? We talked about this in depth.
It's the heat in the summer,
Birdie
like
butts.
going down a hot slide.
Well, I sit at a metal table and it probably melts my butt away.
Oh, the weight
That-
I
that's-
could use
yeah.
that.
That's all I have out at the campground is metal tables.
So I heard a
Let's do half of
proposal
them.
to drop it to
Drop
6.
it to
6.
Okay.
And how old are these first?
These would be brand new.
No, just first, but they all just go to Centennial?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the complete answer to that, but I think when you asked about vandalism, their goal was to put these first at Centennial and disperse those that, and since we didn't know how many handicap we were gonna be able to get and how many regular, and so they might not put all 4 handicap at Centennial, they may spread those out. So I don't want you to take what I'm saying here as the final answer
No,
where
I'm
they're
just
gonna be
curious how they were
dispersed.
being,
Yeah, it'd be
handicapped
nice
or
to
not,
put-
Yeah.
how they were being spread out.
Well, and that maybe is something that Parks and Rec will talk about when the tables come in.
Okay.
It'd be nice to put one at each shelter, you know, so 2 at Centennial and 1 at
Brookside.
Chautauqua and Brookside, you know, kind
Yeah.
of spread out, especially the handicap one.
Right.
By the Chargers where
Yeah.
for the sheriff.
So theoretically, that'll save them time in the wintertime from having to redo tables then. These-
Right.
Once we get all of them replaced, but we have a lot of
So
picture
there's a
tables.
payback there too.
Yes.
So that's another thing to consider, you know, you buy it now.
And the ones they set in the river to cool their feet while they're sitting at a table.
And then leave there,
And
yeah.
leave it there.
You hear
Metal
that?
would withstand that better than the wood.
Those labor hours can be put somewhere other than
Right.
refreshing picnic table.
So we have 6,000. And then improvement other than buildings, we have 100,000 for stair replacement. We don't have bids yet, but that might replace one. We'd like to seek grants and get at least 50%. There are some grants for trails, and stairs could be considered trails. And I've already been talking to Black Hills Council, local governments, about what kind of assistance they could provide if we were to apply for these grants. But if we don't have the money to do it, there's no
A
sense in
Deadwood
applying
grant
for it.
too, they're historical stairs. They're historical, they are historical stairs.
Is that a-
So a Deadwood grant would be an option we should at least try for.
I'll make a note.
Is that a one-time purchase that?
It is
that-
on my list, but 100,000, depending on what we could get for grants, we have 2 currently closed and 3 that need repairs.
Having
So I
laid-
do have it on my list, the 100,000 there, but
Having laid a lot of concrete and poured a lot of concrete, 100,000 is not gonna take care of one stair.
would it be half of one set of stairs?
No.
So what we've been talking about is not putting them back in concrete, but putting them back in metal as far as the steps themselves, and have whatever the right name is for corrugated steps, so that the snow doesn't accumulate on them, so we're not up there, blowing them off and sand or putting snow melt on them and everything. Figure out what they look like historically, but not put them back in concrete.
Good choice.
This isn't the year to, I know it's unpopular, but
But what we had talked about earlier is that we're probably going to be in a position where we're going to be taking money out of savings. So if you reduce this and we don't get any grants, then we've cut 100,000 off this budget. If we take it out of savings now to budget it in the hopes that we get some, or we take it out of savings when we get a grant, coming from the same place.
Yeah. And I
Or at
would,
least removing it.
And it'd be nice
Gets
if we
us
could have
$100,000
something
down.
back up if we got a grant.
Pardon?
It'd be nice to have the money there if we got a grant.
Well, we do, it's just a matter of taking it out of savings at that time, knowing we
Instead
have a
of
grant.
now.
Or taking it out now.
So you're saying that we should drop it for now? Is that what you're
take it
saying?
out, look for the grants, talk about cash applied if we can get a grant.
So if we did get a grant, we would supplementally appropriate
From
at
our
that time
savings, yeah.
from an assigned fund balance.
That also gives you the flexibility to determine if you have it then, because if we
Yeah.
did, you know, grants take a while, applying for them, getting them awarded, awarding the bids, that all takes time, so you could better assess your financial position at that time.
Setting it aside and a year from now, we don't have a grant.
Yeah.
It's just the return on investment for completing it.
Well, they're closed right now, you don't get any money from streets,
Right, I
blocks.
mean, if those stairs never open back up ever again, what's the downside of that?
Well,
Huge
historical.
inconvenience for
The
everyone.
stairs are actually part of the escape route. If
Oh.
there's an emergency at the two stair sets that are closed right now are actually part of the school's emergency escape plan if there's an evacuation at the school. The high school goes down those steps to United Church, no, the Legion.
Legion.
And the elementary goes down the steps by St. John's, which are closed, to the United Churches, is what we were told in our meeting.
We're just going out to the perimeter,
But-
we do the drill.
Oh, that's the active shooter.
Oh, as the active shooter plan, that makes them go down those stairs. So there is a lot of use in our community, the Freedom Trail and the stairs. We don't get money for that, but it's a big draw. We have lots of stair climb events,
I was gonna say, we have two
two or
or
three
stair
stair
climb
climb events that have been affected by the stair closures, so getting rid of them forever, I don't know if that's a
That's
really
what I
good
said.
option,
What's
but,
the ROI?
but this year,
We have
taking
to
it
have
out
them.
and then talking about unassigned fund balance and still pursuing the
kids
grant.
use them every day to come and go to school, from lower town to upper town and back.
Yep. And the track team, football team use them,
I'm a.
tourists use them. I can't climb those, but I can do the grand circuit.
Okay, so I took it out, I'm leaving stair replacement and seat grants on there, and we're gonna continue to pursue opportunities to get some grant funding, and I'll look into the historical Deadwood grant, that's not one of the ones she listed, that might be a potential, so I might mention that there could be some historical affiliation with it, and so maybe
Sure.
those might work, so thank you for that. So I took 100 out of there, and then, machinery and equipment, we have 25,000, they need a new UTV. That is on my list of capital stuff. It'd be one-time replacement for parks.
It's a UTV.
Utility, it's like an HC3, it's like a
It's like
four-wheeler, but.
two-seater,
Side by side.
or four, yeah.
All right, so I have one, oh, wow, that one cut a lot. 195, 435 in parks. Is that what y'all have?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, we did,
What are
Library.
we down to overall?
Auditorium.
You wanna know now, or you wanna get the rest of the way through it? We are down to 324,897,
Oh, yay.
but we've only got Mueller Center left. Well, I guess we have our 212 and our 620 and our 621, but in the general fund, we just have the Mueller Center left. We have one full-time and one year-round part-time employee at the Mueller Center. We have 62,500 budgeted for salaries and wages, 4,800 for payroll taxes, 2,800 for retirement, 1,900 for workman's compensation, 10,500 for group insurance, 275 for unemployment, $10,505 for insurance. And I didn't type that in to this one right. I gotta check those. I'm missing $5 on one of them. Services and fees, $9,500. Publishing, $2,500. That's for the South Dakota Magazine ad, Facebook ads, and Evergreen Media wedding advertisements. Building repairs and maintenance, we have 15,000. He would like new carpet in the conference room, like the annex ceiling tiles replaced, and replace the water stained ceiling tiles in the theater. Any conversation? Equipment repairs and maintenance, 6,000 for a new water line to the new theater HVAC. 1,200 for supplies.
Can we go back and talk about the building repairs?
The 15, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt any of it. I don't doubt that all of it's needed. Is all of it necessary for next year? I mean, we've made a career out of kicking Mueller Center stuff down the road, and I don't want to do that just 'cause, but is it,
We've done a really good job in the last few years.
Well,
getting
what I was wondering about replacing, the water stained ceiling tiles, has the leak been replaced?
Repaired.
Repaired?
This would be 2024, and we're working on the roofs right now.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that it
that's a
wasn't
good
gonna
question.
continue to leak.
can we put Carl in a bad place?
No, I don't think that's fair.
You said this carpet was new here?
Yep, and then
Talk
be
about-
new carpet over there. I would think that if Chris were here, he would tell you that he does need something in general, building repairs, but that new conference carpet room and ceiling tiles is something that if he had to live without, he could. I don't think that there's anything that's necessary to keep the facility open and running. It'd just be nice to replace.
What about aesthetics and appearances to the people who are coming in though?
Yeah, that's important. We all have different opinions of what pretty is.
And you could cover a certain area to keep the elements out.
Should we try with 10,000 on that?
10,000 going once?
Is there a second even?
Well, we could try that and see how it floats.
So the yellow highlighted ones are the ones that you feel we could be able to cut, but we can
They're-
technically cut from a lot of other.
You can cut from anywhere.
So
There
we
are
see nobody
areas,
talking on the yellow.
yeah, there are areas where we identify that there's additional expenses requested. We have a comment in the back.
Is there a way we can get the mothball smell out? It's bothering me again today.
It's so.
And do something to get the bats out, do something to get because every time I leave here, I'm coughing for weeks. And it was strong when it came in. Again, I'm super sensitive, but is there, I don't know if this is where to ask for this, but can you do something professionally to get rid of it all?
I think we'd want to do that sooner rather than later so I can have that conversation with Chris.
So if that's something that could be looked at yet this year, what percentage of this year's budget has he used?
He's way over because we
Oh.
have the roofing stuff.
Okay.
That you're, at the next meeting, you're supplementally appropriating his building repairs and maintenance budget for the roof repairs that we've paid for, because we got
Wasn't
insurance
that
money for
paid
that.
for by insurance?
We have insurance money for it, but we stubbed our toes when we went out for bid the first time and we only did the metal roofs. And then we realized what we did and we stubbed our toes again when we only went out for the flat roof over the gym and the theater. And so now we need a third time to go out for bids and award a roofing repair for this part, when we knew the entire roof needed replaced the first time. So if insurance has given us enough to cover all three, we don't know the answer to that yet, because we haven't even gone out for bid for the third part of the roof. And we can submit bills that are over to insurance to have them look to see if they'll pay for it, but we don't even know where we're at yet, because we haven't gone out for bid for the third time. Jim, anything you'd add?
Well, to that point, I thought that we've been talking about in Public Works, that the insurance will cover the actual cost of the repairs.
As long as we're not choosing things that are above what they already said they pay for at the price that they
Right.
pay for it.
So, in this case, they quoted for the whole building to be repaired, or to replaced.
Decent amount.
And in the discussions that were being had in Public Works at the time, the recommendation was, well, let's go ahead and fix this, this, and this. But to Misty's point in looking at those decisions. They weren't the best ones that we made, and the whole roof needs to be replaced.
I think our original decision was for the entire roof to be replaced.
That's what I thought.
I have the spreadsheet that you approved at a meeting that says Mueller Center replace entire roof.
That's what I
It
thought.
just didn't get bid.
Okay.
But that won't cover any of this stuff. Okay.
Given the challenges that Chris is continually confronted with here, I wouldn't want to whack this too much, so 10.
10, under 10 going once.
I agree.
I agree with Ken.
Okay. Equipment repairs and maintenance, 6, oh, we already went over that one.
There's a larger water line,
We got a new HVAC.
so just need more water to take
It's
care of.
all geothermal.
This building is heated and cooled from the
River.
Fall River.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why would,
Don't ask.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, we pull that back.
Yeah.
1,200 for supplies, 4,000 for janitorial supplies, 1,300 minor tools, 300 agricultural supplies, 100 for mower gas. Utilities are paid from the 211 fund, we talked about that already. Improvements other than building, we have 15,000, replace floor scrubber, current model's 11 years old, the new one would be about 9,000. And then he'd like 6,000 for new lobby seating and banquet tables.
It's just the lobby.
Yeah,
Where,
we have chairs, they work, but they're older. He wants to replace the lobby seating and
So that old scrubber, if we get a new one, could that go to the airport for them to scrub? that?
I mean, I think so, as long as it still works.
Does it work, Carl?
Maybe 11 years old.
You don't have to answer,
Yeah.
you don't have to answer if you don't want to. If you want us to ask Chris, that's fine.
I think Chris would be I'd advise you talk to Chris. I do know some of our events, the little Mylar dots that they put in the balloons that they use have sucked into the machine, and they're a real challenge. So we kind of redid our contracts a little bit, and they're now forbidden. But the machine does have some issues.
will the machine clean a concrete floor?
Yeah, it'll leave some nice streaks, but like our issues on the gym floor in here is you're going back and forth and back and forth. You go over it a couple times to get it all up.
For a hangar floor, though, it would probably be fine.
Yeah, it would love grit.
So 9,000 for the new floor scrubber and 6,000 for lobby seating and banquet tables.
Just the seating that's in the lobby right now is,
It's embarrassing.
the cushions are quite deceptive.
So they're not good.
but they're not.
Yeah,
They look better than they are.
yes.
Pretty
Gosh,
terrible.
there were all those chairs
I
that
think
the
they're
School of Mines
original.
was giving away just to, remember that? Bob, did you get that too? Did you ask me about it? I don't know if any of them could have worked for this, but I forwarded those to all the department heads. They were giving them away surplus. The School of Mines had a large number of chairs.
So how many banquet tables and seating are we talking about for the $6,000?
$6,000 worth is all I got, I'm sorry.
There was no number as to.
So is that, for additional, or is that replacing?
That's replacing. It's new lobby seating and banquet tables.
Are the banquet tables getting pretty chipped up, or?
The big brown ones that are in here, gymnastics took out 4 of them last year. Totally stripped the legs clear out from, and they're not repairable. So I know that some of our activities, that is run down our numbers so that when we're having events, we don't really have the number of tables that some people would like to put up. And so every year, or not every year, but when we order, we do get new ones. We try to continue to use the old ones and repair them. We've got a whole stack of parts. And Chris is really good at
Four were
that.
taken out during gymnastics, totally wiped out. Are they doing WWE training?
Landing pad.
Shouldn't the school be replacing those for us when their gymnastics takes those out?
Well, off the top rope, I can see, you know, I think.
Is
All right,
it-
we-
Is it in our contract with the school to repair things that they break?
I hadn't heard about this before, this is the first I've heard about it, so.
To answer your question,
Another thing we need to enforce? So what are we leaving it then?
I haven't heard anything different.
Sounds like we need
So I have 143, 180.
What did we not change?
We took 5,000 from building repairs and maintenance.
So it's, instead of 10,000, it's 5?
No, instead of 15, it's 10.
Oh, that's what I
So it was,
got.
how much?
143,180. It was 148, 180.
That's what I've got, so I just seen, I have 10,000 in building repairs and maintenance,
Then it's 6,000 under that.
and 6,000, oh, I must have put it on the wrong line. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Get you there?
Yep.
Okay, we've already talked about economic development and assistance. Already talked about transfers out. We're at a general fund projected loss of $319,897. I have $236,000 in my capital investment improvement total because we took out that 100,000. So we can choose to move on and be satisfied with that number and use cash applied. Just talking with the mayor, cash balance is something I kind of hate to get that question, well, do we have the money to pay for that today? Because it changes every day, revenue comes in and expenses are incurred. But we are sitting at a very positive cash balance position in our general fund right now, with a little over $4 million. So 319,000 is not gonna break us if you approve to do that, but if you wanna keep going and go back through and see if we can cut some more, I'd entertain that conversation as well. Should we take a break? Should
Yes.
everybody just take a break at
And
8:05?
there's
And you
drop
stew on that.
Again?
So these are prescription.
Oh, Misty, would you give us a recap? Where are we at?
You can help me.
We have projected loss in the general fund of $319,897.
Okay.
800 what? 17?
97.
319.
I'm just
$897. Are we willing to accept that? Move on from the general fund?
Yep.
I don't like it, but we either eliminate the wage increase or we eliminate the tools that people need to do their job, and both are unacceptable.
Everyone in agreement?
I agree.
What he said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whew, we're gonna move on. So we talked about what comes next. We still have the golf course, 620, and the pro shop, which is still golf course 620, and then Evans Plunge, and then we still have our 212 fund, which is our additional sales tax fund. I'd like to look at the 212 fund real quick, but we're not ready to finish that one until we finish the 620 and the 621 because those both get subsidies. So if you can go to the 212 additional sales tax tab,
What page is
it's on page 29. There's already one change in services and fees, which is the line 3 on your Excel spreadsheet. You saw 12,000. The new number is 40,620 because our projected design costs for the Minnetonka Bridge project that will be due in 2024 is $28,620. So I got that information from, oh, I can't his name right off the head? But the engineer with Bros Engineering that's working with us on the Minnetonka Bridge grant, and he projects those design costs will be in 2024, and it's the city responsibility, so we added the 28,620.
So that's
620.
620.
Would you tell me that bridge design one more time?
28,620.
620, thank you.
Yep. And then the only other thing I want to talk about in that fund right now is our projected revenue is $787,700. And right now, if we don't make any changes, 393,430 of that are our estimated losses at Evans Plunge and Southern Hills Golf Course. So we'll get back and talk about the rest of that fund. But right now, with the way everything sits in here with no changes, you have a projected loss in this fund of $17,765. Now, this is another fund where the cash balance currently is healthy enough to support that. But I wanted you to review that and know that's where we're at before we go to the other two funds to discuss their expense requests. And then I also want to point out that that gives us nothing in the line item that we've used previously for other road repairs.
You said 393 is the losses between the plunge and?
Yep. And we'll go through those and look at them.
But the last 2 years, they've been able to cover that.
Right.
Didn't have to come up with it.
But we have to pass a balanced budget, and right now, our projected revenue, which we've already gone through and approved, does not meet the projected expenses we're about to review on those. And I don't know if you remember me mentioning Tuesday night that when we got to these, the cash balance positions in both of these funds are in the best place they've been since I've started. I don't think with the repairs that we know are needed at the golf course, it would be prudent of you to use any of their cash balance currently, because again, it's a snapshot, it's a moment in time number. But the plunge, without all of the stuff they need, they've got a little over 300 in their cash balance right now, and their year-to-date revenue is exceeding their expenses also, so they'll probably add to that by the end of the year. The golf, so if you wanted to sum of their cash balance, I wouldn't disagree with that, not 235,515, which is the current projected loss, but some amount they may be able to support, but we'll get to those and talk about them. We ready to move on?
Yep.
All right. So we're gonna start with the 620. We talked about how the golf course fund is all together, but they have two departments. So for whatever reason, we separate maintenance from the pro shop. So the first one is 620-45120, which we call Jason's budget. It's the maintenance of the course. In this budget, in salaries and wages, you have two full-time year-round employees, the superintendent and the equipment manager. And then we're estimating the various part-time and seasonal positions. We have $210,400 in salaries and wages. In payroll.
What was your initial number on that golf course?
At the bottom?
Yeah.
400, so it's just one
I thought you
piece.
said a different number.
Yeah, you gotta add them both
Oh,
together.
you were talking about both numbers together.
Yep, and I was actually talking about the loss, which is the difference between projected revenue and projected expenses. 210,400 for salaries and wages, 16,100 for payroll taxes, 7,300 for retirement benefits, 2,500 for workman's comp, 20,850 for group insurance, 1,000 unemployment, 4,620 for insurance, 2,500 for services and fees. I'm not sure what NSN stands for, but they have that.
No serial number used.
No, I don't think that's it. It's for their irrigation system control software. Is $200 a month times 12, and then their fire extinguisher services make up the most of that.
I think it stands for National Support Network.
Oh, okay, thank you. Publishing all moved to the Pro Shop budget. It's part of their new Lightspeed software, point of sale software. They have a marketing component, so all of that publishing budget moved to the Pro Shop budget. Equipment repairs and maintenance, we have $6,200. $600 on cart path R&M, $11,500 on irrigation R&M, $1,400 on pumps, motors, and VFD, $600 in supplies, $200 in clothing, that's their PPE, because they don't buy clothing. $1,500 for minor tools, $150 for landscape materials, $4,500 for sand, $15,000 for fertilizer, $4,000 for pesticides, $3,700 for plant growth regulator, $1,000 for wetting agent, $1,000 for seed sod, $200 for trees and flowers, $10,000 for gas, oil, and diesel, $1,000 for signs, $1,500 for travel and conference. He does attend the Golf Course Superintendent's Association, and he did mention when we asked that question, we said we were asking everybody about regarding training available. They get online training through the South Dakota Golf Association membership that he has his employees utilize. Telephone, $815. Electricity, $7,400. Propane, $1,200. Cell phone, $300. We give a $25 a month reimbursement to one employee. Improvement other than buildings, we have $6,000. That's for front 9 bathroom remodel and a shed for the booster pump. And then $55,000 for machinery and equipment. He has a machinery replacement and equipment replacement schedule, and that's for a new T-mower and cutting units. So total for this department in the golf course fund is $400,435. We ready to move on to Pro Shop, or anybody want to talk any more about any of that? All right, we'll move on to Pro Shop, which is also part of the golf course fund. The middle set of numbers, the department 45130 identifies the Pro Shop. We have one full-time operation manager. We're estimating all part-time and seasonal wages. $107,500 for salaries and wages. $8,225 payroll taxes. $2,400 for retirement benefits. $1,500 for workman's compensation. $10,415 for group insurance. $550 for unemployment. $7,040 for insurance, $11,000 for services and fees. That's where our merchant processing from Lightspeed, Black Hills Technologies, and fire extinguisher services fees come from. $400 for licenses, $15,000 for publishing. That was moved from the other budget in 2023, and Lightspeed takes $13,200 of that. Building repairs and maintenance, we have $25,000. She requested new concrete stairs. Do you remember where those stairs were gonna go?
No.
And added exterior lighting of $24,000, and then new locks for the clubhouse at $1,000.
Are those stairs going down to the
Parking?
driving range? I'm just guessing.
I thought it was maybe concrete stair repair down to parking, but this is new concrete stairs and added exterior lighting.
I haven't been to the driving range in quite some time, but that's a dicey trip down there.
Well, they have it blocked off right now, and they've been talking at Golf Course Advisory, they've been talking about how to get down to the driving range from the club, Pro Shop, and I just don't think they've settled on how they're gonna do that. But you're correct, the existing stair, it's not stairs, it's real steep sidewalk.
Yeah,
That's a hazard.
yeah, it ain't a good way to get there, so that's my only, it's an assumption.
Are we ready to move on, or do we want to talk about that number anymore? equipment repairs and maintenance, that was moved to Jason's budget. He agreed to do maintenance on all the carts. He said it just made sense, does the maintenance on all the other stuff. Supplies, 2,500. Material, equipment for resale, 10,500. On sale wine and on off sale beer, 500 and 20,000. Other materials for resale, 500. Clothing for resale, 10,500. Janitorial supplies, 2,000. Minor tools, 500. Gas, oil, and diesel for the carts, 4,000. Food, 21,000. Signs, she's looking for 5,000 to replace some signs and for new clubhouse sign. Travel and conference, 300. Telephone, 1,600. Electricity, 7,500. Cell phone, 250. We have a tablet for sales out on the course that has cell service. Machinery and equipment, we have 15,000. It's like a multi-use maintenance cart for clubhouse. The dual purpose would be beverage cart range picker upgrade. Computer software, 4,500. The Lightspeed software is $500 a month in season, $250 a month off season. So 4,500 for that. Pro Shop has total expenses of $295,180.
The multi-use maintenance cart, is that the same cart that we kind of talked about last year and then ended up buying more carts?
Half of it, yes.
Yeah, they repurposed something.
So the beverage cart, and it would also then pick up the range balls on the driving range. So if it's not being used for that, the cart for on-course sales.
Has that Lightspeed changeover been worth the change? Has that done great things?
We don't work there, so it's hard to say, but I would say it's very expensive. But we did combine a lot of things into one, and we've lost a couple of those fees because the Lightspeed, if you remember, we were going through the fees.
Has the online sales of, that's where they get their
The tea times?
tea times and all that stuff, is that?
This is the first year that I've used it. It's phenomenal.
Is it?
The ability to make tea times and to be notified of the tea times and changes to them.
And so do you think it's increased our revenue and stuff at all?
No, it hasn't if you look at our reports. But like we mentioned when we were talking about revenue, the last 2 years were phenomenal for golf courses. So to compare this year to the last 2 years might be a little unfair. But we're at a loss right
But
now.
everybody likes it.
I wish they were as phenomenal at their billing as they are at booking tea times, it sounds
They're a
like.
Canadian company, and we've had a really hard time with getting them to take out their payments on a consistent basis, tell us what they're taking out, get it taken out correctly, and then communicating back with us when we have questions or concerns about what they're taking. But if that side of it's working good, we're trying to work through that side.
I can only speak for myself. It's significantly different than the way that they were doing it before. And as a user, I'm only one user.
But
I
you're
haven't
happy.
had complaints.
You
so.
like it?
Yeah.
And I think the workers there, it's working well for them too, so
Yep.
this billing part of it is frustrating for Jill, but I don't think it's frustrating for her employees. I think, you know, when it comes to managing it, the point of sale is very helpful. But I don't think it's increased revenue significantly either, but. So, the golf course between the 45120 and the 45130, the projected expenses total $695,615, and our projected revenue totals $537,700. So we have a projected loss of $157,915 that we have to budget for somewhere. But we don't necessarily have to pay when we're at the end of 2024 is when we look at and make those transfers. And as Deb mentioned earlier, the last couple years, we haven't had to do that for either the golf course or the plunge. Well, the 1 year, last year we didn't have to, but the year before that we did for the plunges because we refinanced the debt, not because they didn't make.
And typically, we've had this size of subsidy.
This
we've
one
had
is
to budget
similar, the
for.
plunges is higher than we've
Yeah.
done before.
So for the first timers, this seems like a big number. It's hard to swallow. Last couple of years, they've done a good job.
But we also have that wall to replace.
And we're hoping to do the repairs that are needed still yet this year and not put that into this year's budget. But that's the reason I would caution you to not apply any cash from their current cash balances, because that is a priority and it's gonna take that money to do that when we get there. Didn't see anything big that stood out. Are we ready to move on to the plunge?
I just didn't know about the multi-maintenance cart for the clubhouse, dual purpose, beverage cart and range picker.
My understanding of
What
that.
are we doing now?
We have a current, my understanding of that request is it solves two problems. We currently have a UTV type of thing that they're using for the beverage cart that Jason gave them, that they repurposed for that use. But the range ball picker upper is dangerous. And this dual purpose cart will serve both purposes, but the issue, and I don't know what a range ball picker upper, but do you remember her saying that is a safety issue and a priority for them. So it's not just that it can be used as a beverage cart, it's that it's replacing something that they're using right now that's not safe.
So it solves a safety hazard and it also increases the revenue stream.
Could potentially.
I see its primary use benefit is in the range picker, making that easier and safer to use. And then secondary use, we can generate some revenue out on the course.
All right, thanks.
I would add, the reason we don't typically in the last couple of years have to subsidize is also because they look, well, Jason especially, and Jill's new, but they look very closely throughout the season and wait and hold on to these big expenses to see where they're at. They do work within, because they're an enterprise fund and they're responsible for the cash balance, the revenue and the expenses, where in our general fund activities, revenue doesn't really matter, but those folks, they watch that and they try to make sure that you don't have to subsidize their operations, because they want to be, especially Jason wants to be, he wants even his water, which we give him free of charge, to be billed to them and for them to be able to cover it eventually is their goal.
For Travis and Melissa and Hal, Jill is a new commodity for us, but Jason is a true asset manager. He watches things like a hawk. He is spending, you would think he is spending his money out there. If he drops a penny on the ground, he's looking for change.
Sounds like we're ready to move on with those requests. We've answered the questions we had. All right, so that brings us to Evans Plunge, which is page 41 in your booklet. So every year, we use the spreadsheet that we have to calculate wages, and then we lower it. Because unfortunately, they're never fully staffed. They did have to close one day. They used to be open 7 days a week during the summer. Now it's 6 days year round. And we're projecting to someday hopefully be back to 7 days a week in the summer. But that has so much to do with staffing and less to do with the funding. So our estimate originally for salaries and wages was $501,050. Knowing how far off their expenses were from their revenue, I once again talked with the department head, just like we did last year. We did the same thing and said, what amount do you think you'd need in salaries and wages to cover. And so we decreased the number by $76,050 to $425,000, which is still $105,000 more than we had budgeted last year. So we have $425,000 for salaries and wages. That's the reason those are highlighted, is because the estimates were lowered with the department head consent, and I just wanted to make sure we talked about that again so that you knew that that happened. Payroll taxes, $32,520. Retirement, only paid to our full-time employees, and as I mentioned up above, or didn't mention and I wanted to, 4 full-time positions. $11,650. $6,200 for workman's comp, $21,050 for group insurance, $2,400 for unemployment, $24,640 for insurance. Services and fees are $18,300. Heartland Merchant Processing, Black Hills Tech, and Serval. $25,000 for advertising. Yes.
So they didn't break out those services and fees?
I'm sorry, I don't have the totals, but I can get those for you. Primarily, that's Heartland Merchant Processing, because many people pay for credit cards, and we're a little under 3% in the rate that we pay for fees, and I think that we were close to $900,000 collected in credit cards at the Evans Plunge last year, so. I'm sorry I don't have those broke out, but I can get you a calculation that's closer in the spreadsheet that I send out to you, like I've done in the other ones, to give you an idea of where those are at.
Thank you.
Myself a note to do that. $25,000 for advertising, $35,000 for building repairs and maintenance. These are in the order of priority for the department head. So if you need to cut from this line item, the irrigation gate system for the pit at $9,000 is very important. 2 lobby windows, pool ceiling upgrade, tile for the family changing rooms, all in that order. And I'm sorry, I don't have dollar amounts for those. $35,000 was going to get it all done. If you have to cut something, they understand. Please don't cut the irrigation gate system for the pit. Pausing for comments.
Well, I changed in the family changing room. And the floor's not that bad, sure.
Yeah, I think that was the last one on their list.
Oh.
And they'd bump it if they had to. Anything? Keep going? I'm gonna keep going. $15,000 for equipment repairs and maintenance, sump pump for pool drain, locker upgrades, locks and gym equipment. $500 for sidewalk repairs and sealing. $15,000 for supplies. $20,000 for material and equipment for resale. That's merchandise to stock the gift shop. $2,000 for clothing. $10,000 for janitorial supplies. $500 for minor tools. $3,000 for purification chemicals. $80,000 for gas for lawnmower. $25,000 for food. That's for the concessions. $1,000 for travel and conference, and they're hoping to get their new head lifeguard LGI certification. $2,700 for telephone. $55,000 for electricity. $6,300 for machinery and equipment. That's to replace 2 computers, get a new pizza oven, and 1 new permanent suit spin dryer. $3,200 for computer software. That's their point of sale annual fee through Sportsman. This fund does have long-term debt issued. We have interest and principal payments on our sales tax revenue bonds. We have $125,000 in principal this year and $22,400 in interest, for a total of $904,440. Our projected revenue without the subsidy was $672,925. So with those projected expenses, we're showing a projected loss of $235,515. I'm sorry?
$908,440?
Yep.
Okay.
Did I say something different? It's
Yeah.
getting late.
I said 904.
Oh, yeah, I said 908, I meant 908, 440, I'm sorry.
Thank you, I wondered what I missed.
Yeah, sorry. So this is the fund, I mentioned, and these are still as of 7/24, I didn't pull new numbers today, but there's 352,000 in the cash balance of the funds right now. And they currently are at a gain of 94,310 for the year. That will go down probably in the winter months as they continue to pay for things. But if you wanted to use 100 or 135 of their unassigned cash to lessen the load on the 212 fund when we get there and not decrease their budget, it's definitely something that we could entertain. But right now, the projected loss is 235, 515, and it's gotta come from somewhere.
So on any of these things that, these projects that she was talking about, was there anything that she could possibly look at getting done this year?
Their priority this year is the facade.
Okay, because I know she had mentioned that to me, the facade, earlier, and I didn't know if that was gonna be done this year or next year.
Yeah, her hope is to get that done this year.
Okay.
And that's why it's not on next year.
Yeah, because I was wondering, like, what happened to that?
Mm-hmm. Good question.
No, I think with the positive way they're going, and she sees those things that need to be done, we need to keep up on all of the routine stuff and get a little ahead on just the general maintenance. Try not to drop behind and kick things down the road like we've done in the past, or someone else has done in the past. So what you said to do really sounds like a good plan to me.
What amount? And is everybody comfortable with that?
I leave the expenses where they are, and I think
Yeah.
if we could potentially, and I'm just gonna potentially pull 100,000 out of the subsidy that we could possibly use for road repairs.
Have I made the 212 conversation with you?
Yeah, have that in the 212 conversation.
Okay. So 100,000 cash applied from Evans Plunge and 135,515 as a subsidy from the 212. Is everybody okay with that suggestion? I'm okay with it, so thank you.
Yes, I am, good job.
Yeah.
Okay. So, maybe we will get done tonight. We're gonna have to schedule another day.
Yes, we will.
So that only leaves us with our 212 fund. You wanna go back to that one? I'm gonna lower the Evans fund, 135,515.
Or the 212 additional sales tax one?
Yes. And so on the, I think I mentioned on the first night that I moved those, I think on the bottom of yours, if you scroll down under all of our estimated expenses for all the years, I have the 2024 estimates for Evans Plunge loss and Southern Hills Golf Course loss, and the total subsidy, I lowered that Evans Plunge number to 135,515. So now that new total is 293,430. So that number goes into line 16, which is the transfers out figure. Taking that 100,000 away, that lowers that number to 293,430. Knowing that Evans Plunge still needs that same full amount, but 100 of it will come from their fund. When I change that number with all the other numbers that are in here, we have a projected profit then of 82,235. And I think that what I heard you say, Bill, is we should plug that number into the improvement other than buildings for street repairs.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. And I think normally we try to put more than that in street repairs, but again, given how busy next year's gonna be, I I'm not sure the guys are gonna have time to do that much street repairs, but if they do, we'll have some funds to do it. That's what I would throw into the mix for discussion.
So I'll go through, just like I did in the other ones, then where we're at in expenses for this 212 fund for all of them. So in services and fees, we talked about that one already. We're at $40,620. That's for 1/3 of the social media position. At the chamber, $12,000, and then for the city share of the cost for design of the Minnetonka Bridge. We have $45,000 in Fall River channel repairs. And the same as with the nuisance budget, I asked the mayor, like, we budgeted for this every year since I've been here, and I want to see us spend it all. We know we need to do the work. We've got some work going, and we've got some talks going to spend more money this year on it, and then do we still need that much in Fall River channel repairs for 2024, or would we like to allocate some of that to road repairs or not?
I think we need to leave it there. Our annual inspection with the Corps should be happening in August, and we still haven't accomplished any of what they wanted us to do for 2023. We need to continue to have an amount in there.
And we have some plan, we're working on some plans, we know what we want to get done, it's finding people to do the work.
Yes.
All right, so then in improvement, other than buildings for other road repairs, we have the 82,235. We have some long-term, yep, do you want me to say that again?
Yeah.
82,235. We have long-term debt, we have the Boulder Falls Special Assessment bond issue and the Boulder Falls sales tax bond issues. We will have future SDDOT payments, but the amounts are unknown, so we haven't drawn from any of it. Depends on how much we draw, how much we have to pay. So I only have the 2 Boulder Falls principal payments, $164,700, and then the interest $17,360. We have airport improvements that we budget for and fund out of our sales tax fund. This $144,355 is hoping that the DOT steps in and picks up the share of the pavement maintenance that they have talked about. So this is the best case scenario if they pick up those expenses, and it gets all the projects done that we want to get done for the year.
And can I, and if you don't mind, Travis, do you want to explain this, or do you mind if I take a shot at it? We have to do pavement maintenance next year. And part of our capital improvement plan for the airport is to expand the taxiway north of where the existing private hangars are. That will allow us to build, or allow more private hangars to be built and then access the taxiway. So that's the two, and those two can be funded with our AIP entitlement funds, and that's the $27,155 is the pavement maintenance, and that essentially repairs and reseals all of the existing asphalt that's at the airport, and that's a lot.
With some fancy new way of doing it that's never been done at any airport in South Dakota, was tested in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's just within the last 2 months been approved by the FAA.
It should extend the life of our runways.
Yeah, by
years. And they were so proud of our runway. They kept congratulating us for the condition of our runways because they're 40 years old. And I was like, oh, thanks, but I didn't do any of that. But
otherwise, you're looking at $4 and $5 million.
Whoa.
So then the extending the hangar taxi lanes, that is also fundable by AIP funding. So our portion of that extension would be about $25,000. So to do everything at once, now you see the big chunk of that is aprons for the new 10-unit T hangar. That is not fundable by the FAA AIP funding. That is 100% City of Hot Springs funding. So, is this the year to do it? Probably not, but because you've got the contractor out there, the economy of scale, if we don't do it now, our cost would probably be ×2 or ×3 to put the aprons in front of those T hangers. So horrible timing, great price.
And then the last number on there is our transfers out, 293, 430, which now our
293 or 390?
293, 430. I took 100,000 off because we decided that
Oh,
Evans
I'm
Plunge
sorry,
could
I'm
use,
sorry.
yep, you're right. So now our revenues match our expenses at $787,700. Everybody comfortable with that? Wow.
Wow. You can say that backwards.
All right.
On the, going back to the phone, and other phones, is this landline phones that are costing so much money?
At the Plunge, yes, that's for the landlines with Golden West. And that's for the whole year. And they have 3 lines, 2 lines. I can't remember, 2 or 3.
And if they're busy or out at late stuff, it's City Hall.
I didn't know that. The new voice over IP phone system does that? Have we gotten overflow? I don't know.
But
Let's say I didn't know.
Well, it's interesting.
We were
if you
told
have
that.
The voice over IP, then is the Black Hills Technology gonna take care of it? Who's gonna?
No, it's through Golden West.
Oh,
It's
Golden West.
something that they got through Golden West, so. All right. Well, what else do we want to say?
I want to thank Misty and Ariel for putting
Yeah,
all this together.
absolutely.
Thank you for taking care of the food. I don't think they're silly. I appreciate every question. Thank you for the food. Thank you for your time and attention. These are the tough decisions.
And
Yeah, we did it in half the time, it's less, a couple of years.
I appreciate the conversation that you folks had, the questions you put to Misty. It's your budget. You approve it, we can only present it. Job well done.
Big thank you to you two gals.
Yeah, well, I think I did minimal of this.
But
her, so-
but you're warming up, girl. That's-
You're learning and you'll be there
She
next
is.
year.
She is
Nowhere
active and
without you.
attentive. and- So we are motion,
Oh,
this is new.
motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Gotcha, yep, thank you.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? Motion passes.